In the protagonist's past life, he worked in a rescue team and died in an accident. After that, he woke up in this world full of mutated beasts and those called the Awakened Ones. In this place, he also awakened a power. By expending physical and mental energy, he could create gems. If the target accepts the gem, he can control their life, soul, and even their consciousness. In theory, this seems like an extremely overpowered ability. But of course, there's an obvious problem. With the gem in hand, someone asks what Zhang Ping is doing. He tells Su Jingyao that it's nothing special and asks if she wanted candy. However, she tells him to forget it since she would never want to be controlled by him. The problem with the ability is that the person has to know what happens when they consume the gem and accept the contract voluntarily. Otherwise, it's useless. The original owner of this body nearly exploded with rage because the ability was useless. However, having lived for a long time, he had a more resilient mentality to withstand such a useless power. Still, Su Jingyao tells him not to give up and that soon he'll find some creature that will accept being dominated by him. The boy says it's easy to say, but besides himself, no one else would accept it. That's when he gets an idea and wonders why he never thought of it before. He starts eating the gem and Su Jingyao asks what he is doing. Instantly, the green power begins to envelop his body and a strange energy rises to the sky. Su Jingyao approaches and asks if he's okay, to which he replies that he is. She tells him to be more careful because it was scary. They then chat for a while. She says it's late and she's going back to the dorm. The boy asks if she really is about to graduate. She explains that she has already learned everything from the books and now only combat will make her stronger. The boy knows that joining the patrol team and protecting the land had always been her childhood dream. She tells him not to be too discouraged. Once he gets stronger, perhaps they can work together. The boy is so useless that he was given the role of farmer at the school. He tells her to forget it because he'll probably live a very simple life. Even so, the boy feels a bit sad. Although she had been a friend of the body's previous owner, he still felt strange leaving her. He thinks he really wanted to give her a hug. Suddenly, out of nowhere, he starts grabbing her. It feels like he's watching himself from another consciousness, wondering why his body is moving on its own. She is flustered and says she's leaving, and with that, she runs off. He tells her to be careful on the way. She turns around slightly embarrassed and tells him to also pay more attention to things. The boy waves goodbye with a smile. However, he noticed that his body moved on its own when he wanted to give her a hug. It was as if, subconsciously, he had commanded himself. Maybe it was a coincidence. Obviously, he wanted to confirm it. He commanded himself to fly like Superman and fell face first to the ground like an idiot. He prepared a mountain fist punch, but it did absolutely nothing except make him fall again like a fool. He ended up crying on the floor. But he realized that now, with his mind, he could perform any action. Of course, it couldn't exceed the normal capabilities of what a human could do. However, as long as he knew exactly the movement that needed to be made, he didn't need to practice. In theory, if the body is capable of executing the movement, he can master any martial art without much effort. The biggest obstacle in front of him now was his own physical aptitude. However, there was still something he wanted to check. The next day, little by little, he opens his eyes and notices he's in the cafeteria exhausted. His legs hurt like hell because he had ordered his body to wake up in the middle of the night and go for a run. The hypothesis that he could control his body even without consciousness was confirmed, and apparently no one suspected anything. People start commenting that someone named Lu Xiu was arriving. She greets everyone with a radiant presence, and the boy knows that she is the beauty of the school. Suddenly, he hears some strange cracking sounds and wonders what the hell it is. Next to him, there was some kind of creature with a giant fox-like face eating someone. The girl seemed to be getting consumed, and no one said anything. It was as if no one besides him was noticing it. That clearly wasn't Lu Xiu. All twisted up, she approached Zhang Ping and said he didn't seem to be doing well. However, at the same time, everything seemed normal in that place. But she was clearly a creature wanting to know if he was sick. Zhang Ping kept repeating to himself to stay calm, and with a trembling voice, he said he was fine. It was just that he had some nightmares and didn't sleep well. He stood up, saying it was time for his class, so he was leaving. However, Lu Xiu wondered aloud if she didn't smell fear. Walking down the hallway, he wondered why there were mutated beasts in the school and why no one noticed them. He went to the classroom thinking he had to tell the teacher about it immediately. But when he got there, he got another scare. What seemed to be the teacher was consuming a girl on the floor. Obviously, he ran out right away. He went to the top floor and sat on a bench, desperate. Something was wrong and he didn't know what was happening. The only thing that had changed recently was that he consumed the stone and started seeing these beasts. He wanted to eat another one, thinking that all this was some kind of illusion. Once again, the green aura started to come out of his body, and a system message said it was doing an evaluation. With that, the scenes he had seen before began to replay. The illusion disappeared, and he was left somewhat breathless. It seemed the system had unlocked an analysis ability. At the moment, he was only a 3-star human with almost no talent. What he also noticed now was that the contract gems had levels. One of the talents was absolute command, meaning the person had to do whatever he ordered. However, at the same time, since he was a contractor, he also had absolute obedience and couldn't disobey. Another talent of his was evaluation, which allowed him to better understand targets depending on the power difference. He figured this had to do with him eating the gem. He began to analyze the fact that he became both the contractor and the contracted. Since he could control his own body through the ability's consciousness, he was no longer affected by powers that created illusions for his body. These foxes were all high level, and he stood no chance against any of them due to the cognitive distortion they could create. They could eat a person without anyone else noticing. He remembered that Su Jingyo, his childhood friend, had mental abilities, so maybe it would be better to talk to her. After school, he decided to meet her. What scared him was what he saw outside the school. A romantic couple passed by him, but the girl had already been dominated by a fox. He then went to the patrol team headquarters. He approached the receptionist, who, looking beautiful, asked him what he wanted. The boy said he was there to find a girl named Su Jingyo, who must have joined today. But lo and behold, the woman also turned into a fox and told him to wait a moment. Sitting on the bench, he wondered how those damn creatures had already dominated even the patrol team. Apparently, not even high-level awakened ones could see this illusion. And if anyone asked what he was doing there, it was Su Jingyo. Zhang Ping said he was worried that she wouldn't adapt, so he came to check on her. She said he didn't need to worry and introduced the allies from her team, saying that everyone that took good care of her. The boy admitted that it truly was impressive. She then excitedly said that from now on, she would work hard and get stronger to destroy all the beasts and avenge her relatives. She suggested he should join the patrol team too, as they were short on members. But the boy, embarrassed, said his ability was kind of weak, so he wouldn't be able to help much. Seeing how well she was adapting, and given that he was just a farmer, he said he was leaving. However, he already suspected the truth. He only said goodbye to Su Jingyo and her entire team, who were all foxes too. Trying not to show fear, he left, wondering how the strongest group in that city had been wiped out. Su Jingyo had only just arrived, and she was already in this situation. These creatures were called foxes of natural order. Their ability made anything out of the ordinary seem completely routine, and in those moments they hadn't just infiltrated the school but the entire city. The entire city of Pearl had turned into cattle for these monsters. Using the analysis technique, he managed to uncover some details about these creatures. First, most of them ranged from intermediate to high levels. However, back at the patrol team, there were several creatures whose levels he couldn't even assess. Second, the creature that killed Lu Shi was extremely powerful, and the moment he tried to analyze it, he knew he would be discovered. That creature was either at an advanced level or even a king-level beast. With so much power, it was no wonder they had wiped out the city without anyone noticing, especially considering that, compared to other beasts, they were extremely intelligent and all their abilities were for disguise. Fourth, it seemed the foxes always prioritized the most influential people in society, while the others were mere cattle for them to feed on. In this current situation, it would be a death sentence to face so many of them head-on. However, he couldn't just stand by and watch so many innocent citizens die. He needed a way to get stronger. A week later, he woke up at 3:54 a.m. Since he received the ability, it seemed his body was resting much better. In addition, he advanced to level 2 after training a lot. All the remaining physical and mental energy he had was being turned into gems to consume, in hopes that sooner or later he'd get a better one or some evolved talent. After all, ever since he leveled up, the gems had turned colorless, and he seemed to get nothing from consuming them. However, today he finally got another one with color. He consumed it, saying that it looked more like poison, but he hoped it would have some effect this time. After a while, power began accumulating in him, and in his profile he received a new ability, Night Walker. It granted him night vision, reduced his presence at night, and if he was in the shadows, he became completely invisible. In addition, the contract gem also leveled up to 2, and he wondered if it had something to do with his base level. If he could merely gain a new talent with every level, he would eventually become invincible. But now that he had the new talent, there was no reason to delay. Time to start practicing. Activating the Night Walker ability, he said he wanted to test it. He ran around the school and noticed that his vision at night was now far better than during the day. He could spot any object, including a strange ring lying on the ground. He crouched, finding it a bit odd that it was there. He tried using his analysis abilities several times until he finally succeeded. It was the Ring of Assassination, which, when worn, made all forms of life unconsciously ignore the user completely. The analysis then showed what had happened. The natural order fox controlling Lu Xiu's body had faced a man, probably the true owner of the ring. He had attacked, but she seemed to be expecting him, and with a single slash, the poor guy was cut in half. He knew that Lu Xiu had always been an honest girl, so she wasn't the target of this attack. This meant that besides him, there were other people in the city of Pearl going against these foxes. Suddenly, a fox jumped over the wall and asked who was there. The fox leaped into the bushes, saying she was sure the ring had been there. She had noticed someone's presence, but strangely couldn't sense anything now. If he managed to escape her radar, he was probably an intermediate level awakened one or higher. The boy realized that the fallen ring was actually a trap, and the fox retreated, saying she had to inform the royalty. But that was great for him, as combined with the Night Walker ability, he was now basically invisible. The sun finally rose, and it was 5:36 a.m. Since he needed to get stronger as fast as possible, items were indeed the best solution. However, suddenly he heard some footsteps approaching. A strange voice called his name. He wondered who it was and who was speaking to him, but the voice only told him to hide. The girl then grabbed his face and warned him that they were coming, or rather, they were already there in his room. It had been 4 minutes since he woke up, and there were 3 foxes staring at his sleeping body. The one controlling Lu Xiu asked if it was him and prepared a red attack in her hand, telling him to die. The claw came straight for his face as he drooled. The fox paused the attack, thinking that if it had been him, he would have fought for his life. Besides, she couldn't sense the presence of that ring. Another fox, however, said he was very suspicious since he went out for walks every day. But today, he didn't. However, Lu Xiu, who was also royalty, said it wasn't him. That one was just a worthless meal, and they should learn that food in this city wasn't to be wasted. Some time passed, and the boy woke up startled. He spat out the ring, saying that was a close call. He was stupid to forget about today's walk, and he was lucky he forced his body to swallow that ring, avoiding exposure. What he found strange was hearing Su Jingyeo's voice telling him to hide. He wasn't sure if he was getting sentimental or what was happening, but he knew he had to get stronger and get revenge. For now, to avoid any suspicion, he needed to continue living normally. Later, he went to the cafeteria, and 2 girls were commenting that they had found a body split in half this morning. It seemed it was a guy named Black Star, an extremely talented assassin from the city of Pearl. The boy wondered if it was the person from his vision. If even someone so famous in the city was killed like that, clearly Lu Xiu wouldn't be easy to deal with. The strange thing was that they left the body for the public to see. Maybe it was a way to send a warning to those opposing the foxes of natural order. Their surveillance was going to increase, and he urgently needed to find new equipment. After class, he decided to check out some blacksmiths. However, in every shop he went to, it always seemed to be run by a fox. Suddenly, he performed another analysis. The system congratulated him for having conducted 100 analyses and informed him that he had reached the intermediate ranking of the ability. He could now see growth potential and even some talents. The fox had called him into the shop, but he simply thanked her, saying he wasn't interested. His priority was to find a store that hadn't been taken over yet. He approached a blacksmith called Soul Iron, where someone inside said the sword was of high quality. A blonde guy was trying to sell it to the old man, saying he didn't want to brag too much, but that blade was extremely good and he was offering it for a low price. However, the old man told him to take his eyes off his daughter and get those trashy things out of there. Angry, the guy got in the old man's face and asked if he hadn't heard what he said. Suddenly, Zhang Ping grabbed the sword that the guy had left on the table. The man asked what he was doing while the boy used his analysis ability. The blonde guy came over, telling him to give it back or he'd get beaten up. But the system warned that while the sword was attention-grabbing, it was useless since it had been repaired terribly. Right then, Zhang Ping said that the sword would break, and indeed, it snapped at that moment. The blonde guy started crackling with electricity, saying that Zhang Ping had ruined his plans and asked if he knew who he was. He claimed to be a direct disciple of the martial arts master from Xingyi School. He lunged at Zhang Ping, unleashing a flurry of light attacks. But Zhang Ping had sent out a shadow clone. Then Zhang Ping simply slapped the guy in the face. The boy questioned how he could be so weak, and the blonde guy called him dirty. Zhang Ping wasn't afraid at all since he had already seen that this sickly guy was only a level 1 with limited growth potential. The guy shouted that one day he'd get revenge when he became stronger. Zhang Ping just thought that he was delusional. But while Zhang Ping was distracted, the guy tried a sneak attack. He ended up knocked out on the ground, and Zhang Ping commented on how much this guy liked fighting dirty. Suddenly, someone approached, saying they were gone for a second, and the blacksmith's shop got noisy. The one arrived with incredibly strong abs and warned that if the guy didn't leave, he'd be beaten up. The blonde guy ran off terrified, and Zhang Ping realized it would be better to leave too. However, the woman blocked his way, and he asked what the problem was. She said it would be better if he stayed so they could have a little chat. The scene then gave a peek into the boy's room, showing us the staircase where the story began, where he had spoken with his childhood friend. This was also the sports field where he did his daily morning walks and found the ring lying on the grass. Back at the blacksmith shop, Zhang Ping asked what the woman wanted to talk about. She said she was a weak, single girl who struggled every day to survive and had to take care of her uncle. She noticed that Zhang Ping had great potential and physical strength, so she wanted to ask him a little favor. She wanted him to stay with the old man named Liu Tifeng, take care of the shop, and learn everything about blacksmithing. Obviously, she would cover accommodations, meals, and even pay him. Zhang Ping was overwhelmed with joy, thinking it would be great to learn as he would need many items and didn't have much money. Plus, the shop didn't seem to be controlled by the natural order foxes. He struck a worker's pose, saying he was a man of the field and wouldn't shy away from work. She slapped him on the face, saying that's what she expected from a guy she was interested in. Zhang Ping muttered that his first priority would be to survive her hits. A few days passed with him working at the blacksmith shop, and someone told him to put more force into it. He asked if it was okay to do something like that, and she said it was fine since no one was coming to check on them. She encouraged him to continue, saying it was really good. Obviously, he was forging, not what you might have thought, right? She was teaching him how to hammer the materials, and she told him to wait a moment while she went to get some molds from the warehouse. The coal to be used was in a bucket, and he was warned not to let the fire go out. The problem was that there was more than one bucket, and he didn't know which one to use. He came to the brilliant conclusion that if he threw everything in, one of them would work. So he threw it into the furnace to keep the fire going. However, the whole place exploded. Flames shot in every direction. Zhang Ping thought he was done for and wondered if he had died. But then a strange skull appeared on his chest, absorbing part of the power, and all the flames seemed to be entering his body. Suddenly, he woke up with one eye burning. The entire place was filled with smoke and ashes, but he didn't seem to be dead. However, his heart was burning and racing. Realizing he was on fire, he used his analysis ability on himself. His growth potential had risen to 4 stars. The more stars he gained, the more he could evolve his abilities, and evolving the abilities he had already acquired would further increase his potential. What he found odd was that people usually had a limit to growth increases, so why was he awakening so many talents? This time, he had awakened Flame Devourer, which allowed him to absorb fire energy and release it at any moment. What he found strange was that he had consumed a level 3 gem that morning, but the power had only been released after this accident. Suddenly, the woman appeared, asking what happened. She noticed that the scarlet scales were gone and said that those caused an explosion when thrown into the furnace, but she admitted it was her fault for not telling him. He apologized to Sister Rose Kirang and said he would pay the price to repair everything. She told him that just being okay was good enough and asked how he hadn't died, since it was hard to put out the fire from such a scale. Moreover, she saw that he had created a material that required an extremely high temperature. She started casting the item into the mold, saying he had great potential. She remarked that the Academy still rated him with low performance. He was good enough to enter one of the 3 major organizations. He said he knew the patrol squad and the investigation squad, but what was this third one? She explained that there was indeed a third organization in the city. Almost no one in Pearl City knew what they were called or what they did. She then asked if he needed equipment and told him to take the dagger if he didn't mind. Seeing its glow, he remarked that it looked quite expensive. The good quality dagger was called Beautiful Tears and dealt damage to any creature below level 19. She explained that it was worth at least 100,000, which would be around 3 years of salary for that fool. He asked how someone poor like him, who earned 3,000, could walk around with something like that. She told him to see it as a reward for improving so quickly. She mentioned that she was going on a mission and asked if he was sure he wouldn't return to the academy. He replied that she didn't need to worry because he had already filled out the graduation papers. She told him to take care of the old man and not let him open the shop. Zhang Ping realized that the foxes had no interest in this place because they rarely opened it. However, of all the things happening lately, it might have drawn some attention. Since it was night, perhaps it was a good time to take a look around the street. Out there, and he saw a little girl on a swing looking all cute. But of course, she was a damn fox with 4 stars of power. The interesting thing was that this was the first time he had seen a level 3 fox. Since both he and the fox were level 3, and he had the new dagger and abilities, he figured he could probably win. The patrol squad had been killed, but the investigation squad should still be fine. If he can deliver the body of a natural order fox to them, he could get some attention. But suddenly, he was frozen in place and someone asked if he was trying to attack a child. He was warned not to move or he would lose his life. The woman told him to drop his weapon, and he already knew that whoever she was far above his level. Both his Night Walker ability and the Ring of Assassination had been detected by her. The voice then said that if he didn't want to die, he should meet her at the training ground by the orphanage. With that, she vanished into the air. At least the fact that he was still alive meant she wasn't on the side of the foxes. He grew up in that orphanage, and as a child, he started calling it the training ground. But that's how she referred to the place, which meant she somehow knew him or knew something about him. Not only did this figure seem to be watching him, but she also stopped him just as he was about to make a move. If she had sent him there, she must have had a purpose. Suddenly, a paw stepped near him. A mutated beast approached, and he wondered why there was one in the forest. It was a level 5 armored poisoned rat. Considering the level difference, he thought about retreating, but then he remembered that with the dagger in hand, he could win. Especially considering that the orphanage children would be in danger if they came out and saw this. Thinking of how much Sister Rose Chang trusted him, he couldn't back down. Even though he didn't know how to fight perfectly yet, he had read plenty of stories about battles and he had full control over his body. Suddenly, the rat lunged at him and started rolling in his direction. He quickly thought of a way to defend himself and managed to block the attack. The problem was that the creature kept spinning and its armor was extremely tough. It ricocheted and crashed into a rock. From there, it opened its hand and began gathering green energy. Zhang Ping began controlling himself as if he were in a game, dodging everything left, right, left to evade every attack. The only weak point of the creature was its eyes, as its entire body was protected by armor. Seeing the flames in his hands, he knew how to handle this. He rushed toward the creature, dodging its attacks, and said he'd make a feint first. He struck, but the rat defended itself and rolled into a ball again. But then Zhang Ping prepared and told it not to get angry. He unleashed a barrage of flames at the monster's feet, taking advantage of the moment when its resistance was reduced, and landed a solid hit on the creature. Sometime later, he leveled up and gained a few attributes. Clearly, combat was the most efficient way to level up. What he found strange was the appearance of a rat in the middle of the city. It was highly suspicious. While he was thinking about whether there were other creatures, something approached him from behind. In an instant, he seemed to fall into a swamp, and before he knew it, he hit the ground. He fell flat on his back like a fool in a cave. A voice reached out a hand and said he had 5 minutes. He recognized it as the same voice from before. A girl pointed an ice blade at him and told him to prove that he was human. He was confused, wondering how he could prove something like that. He had been born human, so maybe that was proof enough. But that he realized that if she was asking something like that, it was because she knew there were some beasts in disguise. However, she couldn't tell, which was why she wanted him to prove it. He then asked her to give him some hints about how he could prove it. He already suspected that the rat from earlier had been a test from her. She told him he had 4 minutes left, and he continued using his analysis ability. It had already been 20 times, and he kept failing. On the 999th attempt, it finally advanced to a higher level. With that, he tried again, and the analysis passed. Her name was Liu Cixin, a level 28 human from the Purging Squad. He had never heard of this group before and thought it might be the third one that Sister Rose mentioned. Angrily, she told him he only had 1 more minute to prove himself. He mentioned that if she called the orphanage the training ground, then she must have grown up there too. The problem was that he didn't remember anyone named Liu Cixin from the orphanage, so he asked if she was Liu Torin or Liu Yusho. Maybe she was Xingyu or Sissy. The boy received a small cut, telling him to be quiet. She said that none of this proved he was human. However, John Ping figured she must be Liu Sissy because she reacted when he mentioned that name. She was 3 years older than him, and by the time he had joined the academy, she had already graduated. He needed to recall something that only the two of them knew. He remembered that she once taught him the earth-crushing fist and began mimicking the movements she had shown him back then. He said that it seemed she really was Sissy. However, she interrupted him, saying she would ask a second question. She pointed out that his ability was the contract gem, which was supposed to be useless. So what had he been doing during this time, and why did he seem stronger? He explained that 2 weeks ago he consumed the contract gem and now had control over his body, making him immune to any beast illusions. Based on what he had observed, there was a massive group of natural order foxes within Pearl City. He believed that their entire tribe had already infiltrated. She asked if he was telling the truth since a fox's basic talent was cognitive distortion. He started explaining about the city's influential figures, the weapon shop, and even the girl on the park swing. All of them were natural order foxes. She told him to wait there while she checked something and asked someone named Jin Bo if he thought the information was reliable. The man replied that they had never discovered the natural order foxes inside Pearl City, but some investigations pointed to something similar involving cognitive distortion. He would send 2 people to capture the nearest foxes, and they should be back soon. However, at that moment, an explosion occurred behind him. 2 men were lying on the ground, and he asked what had happened. One of them came running, saying that the crazy one following them was the owner of the cafeteria. The moment they tried to ask her to come with them, she started attacking everyone. The next thing they knew, she was face to face with the leader. But the man calmly prepared his fist and told her to die, hitting her square in the chest effortlessly. The girl disintegrated, and he remarked that it was arrogant of her to attack like that. As the body lost its aura, it turned into a fox. The man confirmed that the boy's information seemed legitimate. Finally, they began to understand who their enemies were. He told the team to be informed, and they would start hunting down these targets. Meanwhile, at the Pearl Academy, the lovely Liu Xiu was lying down. Except, of course, she was a terrible fox. She and her friend seemed to sense something. Without hesitation, Liu Xiu leaped from the top floor, thanks to her distortion ability, making it irrelevant. In truth, she sensed that a girl named Yu Ju had been killed outside the city, while another had been killed in the business district. Who was managing to hunt them down so perfectly and avoid her detection? Obviously, she wasn't going to let this slide. Back in the dark space, Zhang Ping asked if Sissy had finished her investigation. She replied that she had, but he was still quite strange, given that he had received this ability out of nowhere. Since they couldn't fully trust him yet, he would only act as an informant. She would keep a close eye on him, and if he found anything, he should get in touch. Zhang Ping agreed, saying he'd do anything to avenge himself against the foxes. She threw him an item explaining that this jade comes in pairs. He had the cold one, and if he applied heat to it, the hot jade she carried would warm up, serving as a kind of signal. Still, she advised him to keep getting stronger. No one could guarantee his safety 100%. Zhang Ping was excited, playing with the jade, saying he really wished he had joined the martial arts academy, but he didn't have the money for it. Sissy said she'd talked to the organization to secure a spot for him. The boy excitedly thanked Sister Sissy. Recently, the number of foxes in the city had been decreasing significantly, allowing the squad to kill them all. Luckily, he had gained his ability at just the right time, discovered the squad, and learned her identity. Thankfully, everything was going well, and the foxes were being eliminated. Plus, he had received $10,000 right away, which was quite generous. A girl approached him, asking if he was interested in learning martial arts at the Beast King Academy. The boy agreed, saying he'd like to check it out. This martial world was highly capitalistic, with each technique priced in dollars. The girl assured him that it would definitely be worth his money. The Beast King's martial techniques were highly valued in Pearl City, and she grabbed him, saying that if he didn't believe her, she could show him. She then prepared and told him that the first 3 techniques were the monkey technique, the crocodile technique, and the phoenix technique. Zhang Ping noticed that the movements were much more precise than what he had been using. It really was a good martial art. The only issue was that it was clear the girl wasn't fully prepared to teach it properly. Being a gentleman, Zhang Ping asked if she was okay. As they were talking, two side characters showed up itching for a fight, and one of them asked who had given her permission to hand out flyers there. Embarrassed, she apologized, saying she didn't know she wasn't allowed to. Then that annoying blonde guy, Andy, showed up, saying that the beast fist technique was ridiculous. As he approached, our protagonist already wanted to punch him because he teased him about the thunder technique. Of course, the guy didn't like that and said it was time for revenge from the blacksmith shop incident. But the girl stepped in front, saying no one was going to hurt Zhang Ping. The guys started yelling and tearing off their shirts. Zhang Ping activated his analysis ability. The two fools were level 4 and said they would finish them off. They were using a skill that reduced intelligence by 70% for a little bit of extra strength. Zhang Ping was confused. He wasn't even sure if that could be called a talent. He then turned his attention to the girl, whose name was Wan Jimin, and saw that she had a ton of potential for growth. She would definitely be strong in the future, but at level 3, she would only get beaten up. So he handed the flyers back to her, saying this was his problem and he would handle it. After all, he was eager to test the techniques he had just learned from her. One of the fools lunged at him, but Zhang Ping easily dodged and landed the first style strike to the back of the neck. The second guy came, but Zhang Ping elbowed him in the stomach, saying that was the second style. Then that useless blonde tried his lightning technique again, but Zhang Ping kicked him in the groin before he could complete it. Jimin was already impressed, wondering how Zhang Ping had learned the techniques just by seeing them once. She even asked if, in the future, he could teach her when she didn't understand something. Zhang Ping agreed, and she thanked him, saying that together they would get much stronger. Zhang Ping knew that with her 7-star growth potential, she really had promise. Maybe, in the future, he would be the one needing her help. When they arrived at the academy, they saw a bunch of people panicking because it seemed like the instructor was coming back. She even mentioned that Instructor Baide was a bit cruel, and those who didn't complete their missions were usually punished. Zhang Ping asked if she had been punished, and she admitted that she was probably punished the most since she hadn't managed to accomplish much in a month. Zhang Ping wondered why she seemed so proud of that. Then someone opened the door and everyone greeted the instructor. Jimin told Zhang Ping to be respectful and cautious. The first thing the instructor said was to run 50 laps. Zhang Ping noticed the man's name was Baide, a level 25 human. He could already tell that Baide was strong, especially since his level was on par with Cizi's. Baide then asked Zhang Ping if he was the one who helped with the issue at the other school. Zhang Ping responded that he was. Baide prepared a fist and told Zhang Ping to take a look. Zhang Ping tried to explain that he wasn't that strong, but he began dodging the attacks. Baide asked what was up with that beginner talk, as he had heard that Zhang Ping learned the Monkey King technique after just one demonstration. Baide came at him, and Zhang Ping realized he wouldn't be able to dodge. However, the instructor was kind and just gave him a soft tap. Baide admitted that at first he didn't believe it, but Zhang Ping really did have potential. It was just a shame that he had learned from someone so useless. The movements that person showed weren't even close to the real ones. Baide said he would personally teach Zhang Ping, and the boy thanked him. But now it was time to deal with the slackers from earlier. Baide ordered everyone form a line and fight him, followed by 500 push-ups and a 10 kilometers run. As someone touched Zhang Ping, it was Jimin, embarrassed. He asked what was wrong. She said the instructor had never taught her privately, so she would love it if he could pass on his knowledge to her later. Zhang Ping agreed, saying they could go to the Soul Iron shop later to train together. She beamed with excitement, saying she thought he would reject her. The system showed Zhang Ping that she had a weakness, as it took her 90% longer to learn anything. However, if she trained the same thing every day, her learning speed would increase by 10% each day, up to a maximum of 100%. Clearly, this ability was a nightmare for the teacher, who didn't know why she couldn't learn anything. 5 days passed, and they were back at the blacksmith shop. Someone commented that her movement was wrong. The diligent boy had taken her to the basement and was teaching her, explaining that she was doing it all wrong. Even though he was breaking the technique into parts, she still couldn't get it right. But that beast fist technique he had learned was really something. At that moment, Rose Chang returned. Zhang Ping told Jimin to keep practicing while he went to check on things. Upstairs, Rose mentioned that she had almost messed up this time and still didn't understand why the number of mutated beasts was decreasing so much. Because of this, they had been forced to hunt up north, where they encountered some storm wolves. Zhang Ping asked if she got out of it okay. She replied that yes, they had used a technique to hide, and the wolves attacked another group, allowing her to grab something valuable, a gem that allowed people to control the wind with their minds. Zhang Ping asked if it was a wind gem, and Rose commented that he really seemed to know everything. With that, even a child could create wind blades. Zhang Ping heard a voice saying that her brother was starting to train. Another voice mentioned the wind blade sword, and yet another said that since Yu Shiwei had died, she would eat 2 more of them. With that, Zhang Ping awakened another talent. But then he heard someone talking about the 2 people inside the shop. He recognized the voices as those of Natural Order foxes, and they were discussing how the 2 would make a great snack. Zhang Ping wondered if they were planning to invade the shop in broad daylight. Meanwhile, Sizzy was taking a bath, reacting calmly even though Zhang Ping was about to be in serious danger. He questioned whether she would arrive in time, as those foxes could break in at any moment. Rose noticed something was wrong and asked if he had a problem. Zhang Ping turned to her and suggested she visit her uncle now that she had returned, as he was always talking about her upstairs. She agreed and said she would prepare dinner and buy some ingredients. But before leaving, she took the gem with her. Zhang Ping handed it back to her and thanked her for leaving, ensuring she wouldn't get involved in what was about to happen. He then rushed over to Jimin, who was practicing like a fool. He simply told her to be quiet and come with him. Just then, two foxes appeared and asked where they thought they were going. Zhang Ping told Jimin to stay away, but she asked what her mom and dad were doing there. She told Zhang Ping they were her relatives, so there was nothing to worry about. However, standing before him were two natural order foxes at levels 15 and 16. They asked Jimin who the person next to her was and why he seemed so scared. She explained that he was a friend from the martial arts academy. Suddenly, a dark space began to form around the two of them. Both foxes leaped at them, shouting not to let them escape, while Jimin appeared frightened. Zhang Ping told her to forget about them and hold on. The problem was that they seemed to be tracking him. Zhang Ping turned his back to protect her from the attack. The two fell to the ground and smoke rose. Jimin asked if he was okay, and he replied that he was. She then asked what her parents were doing, but Zhang Ping warned her not to get closer. They were mutated beasts. The mother fox commented that it seemed he could see through their disguise, and if that was the case, he couldn't be allowed to live. Zhang Ping barely dodged, realizing that his physical strength wasn't keeping up because of the level difference. The real problem was that the mother fox was now heading toward Jimin, who looked too scared to react, while Zhang Ping struggled to free himself from the other fox. Just then, Sizzy arrived and told him to step aside. She unleashed a barrage of ice, piercing one fox and then continuing to hit the other. She jumped to finish them off, but Jimin pleaded with her to stop. However, it was too late. Sizzy showed no mercy. She simply turned and asked if they were okay. Devastated, Jimin asked why her parents had become carpets. Zhang Ping tried to explain that they weren't really her parents, they were just foxes who had taken on their form. The poor girl was distraught, crying that it was impossible. They were clearly her parents. Zhang Ping asked why they had reverted to their true forms. Sizzy explained that if there was a fox above king level in the city, they couldn't be maintaining this kind of illusion. Last time, the foxes reverted to normal because they were killed outside the city. That's when Zhang Ping began to realize he was the only one who could expose the truth. He then told Jimin that these two had killed her real parents and assumed their form. When he removed the cover, the true bodies appeared, and he told her that this was the reality. The poor girl broke down in tears, asking how this could be possible. Meanwhile, Lu Xiu, that awful fox, wasn't too happy either. After all, 9 of them had been killed this week. In a meeting, someone suggested that they should just kill everyone and take control of the city. But another person asked if they were going to graze on grass after killing all the humans. Lu Xiu silenced them, warning that wiping out all the humans would be extremely inefficient and a waste of food. Their priority now was to find the people hiding in the shadows and eliminate them. The vice president suggested that if they brought in several strong beasts to attack the city, the powerful humans would be forced to reveal themselves. Everyone knew there were 3 organizations, but no one knew what the third one was. The 2 foxes nearby agreed that it seemed like a good idea. Lu Xiu stood up and gave her approval, but reminded the mayor not to forget that he was still human, warning that if he did anything wrong, he would be dealt with. The idiot mayor punched the air, vowing that he would never go against Her Highness. Back with Jimin, she slowly approached the puddle, looked at what had happened, and cried for her mother and father. She apologized, saying she had never realized the truth. Sizzy, ever so cruel, said that even if Jimin had known, she wouldn't have been able to do anything. Jimin, crying, pleaded with her to go easier, saying that she knew she was weak, unable to learn any martial arts, and that was why she had lost her parents. She lamented that she should have been the one to die. But our romantic protagonist, Zhang Ping, stepped in with a hug, telling her to listen. This wasn't her fault. He had also lost someone important and thought about them every day. Maybe if he had stopped her from joining the city patrol, she would still be alive. But he knew that even if he could go back in time, nothing would change. Joining the patrol had been her dream, and nothing he could have said would have stopped her. Just like Jimin couldn't blame herself for her parents' deaths, she needed to get stronger and protect those she loved in the future. Crying, Jimin thanked Zhang Ping. He was about to say he'd kill the foxes, but suddenly, he coughed up blood on her face. It seemed our boy was more injured than he had let on. Later, he slowly opened his eyes. Jimin, who had already moved past her grief for her parents, thanked him for being alive. He asked how long he'd been unconscious, and Sizzy told him to stay still. Excited, Jimin clung to his arm, saying she wanted to become even stronger. Once she gained more power, she would help him wipe out those foxes. Sizzy then suggested that Jimin stay with Zhang Ping, as her home would no longer be a safe place. Just then, Zhang Ping heard Lu Xiu's voice talking about the king continuing to sleep and about Huan Ziming's place. He told Sizzy that he had a lead on the foxes. He mentioned the vice president, and Sizzy commented that if he was connected, he had clearly betrayed humanity. That king they were talking about could be the one amplifying the illusion for everyone. Since the foxes were out hunting, it was their chance for revenge, and she would need Zhang Ping's help to identify them. Meanwhile, Rose was happily cooking, starving. The scene shifted to the purging squad's base. The girl named Manny complained that Sizzy was always bossing everyone around and making all sorts of demands, while Chen Luo just quietly observed. They entered the meeting room, where another, far more dangerous, person offered Manny a cup of coffee. This base was a dangerous place, if you know what I mean, and it was time for the meeting to start. Her name was Suji, and she initiated the solar recharge. Another person activated the black curtain, and the last one triggered the light and shadow distortion. Together, they created a celestial curtain around the entire city. Meanwhile, Zhang Ping thought that the purging squad was finally starting to trust him. They were the only ones who had a chance to deal with all of this, and they had extremely rare weapons. They also had a secret group for operations like this. The leader had the black curtain ability, which was responsible for creating those non-existent spaces he kept falling into. Suji had the solar recharge ability, which could give a long-lasting buff to allies, and Chen Luwei could turn herself or others completely invisible. Together, their powers allowed them to create the celestial curtain, which lured any creature below king level into the world they had created. Since the foxes like to use illusions to kill people, they were going to play the same game. We saw two girls walking through the city, talking about killing humans. One of them suggested they could capture the humans and take them back. The other commented that the city had been chaotic lately, and her friend asked if she was scared. Suddenly, the second girl stopped, and the one with purple hair asked if she didn't feel something strange approaching. The first girl was about to brush it off as paranoia until she also felt something and wondered where all the humans who had been around them a second ago had gone. At that moment, someone approached with a fist aimed right at the back of their necks. A small explosion echoed through the street, and the person remarked that it was a shame they hadn't been able to take them out in one punch. The girls realized that this was the person who had been killing foxes in the city and called him bold. It was Liu Bo who thanked them for the compliment. He was a level 32, and Zhang Ping had warned him that these two were level 25s, so he was confident. Both girls lunged at him, but he easily dodged one of their strikes. However, something strange happened. He seemed to take damage, even though he had blocked the attack. One of the girls leaped toward him, saying he was nothing but food. Liu Bo found it strange that even though he had blocked the attack, he was still taking damage. The girls kept striking him, taunting him, asking if that was all he was capable of. They found it ridiculous that their friends had been killed by someone so weak, but then one of them took a slap to the face with Liu Bo, saying that now she knew why. Her friend jumped in, shouting that he would pay for that. However, up close, Liu Bo said he could see it now. He had been defending against their human forms, but needed to remember that he was fighting foxes. It was difficult, but now he understood their true size. They were indeed strong when it came to sneak attacks, but in a real fight, they were nothing. Agonizing, the friend asked the other for help, but Liu Bo just smiled and asked if she was feeling nostalgic. With that, he slammed her friend right into her chest. As they were reeling from the blow, Liu Bo appeared behind them, warning that another strike was coming to finish them off. He delivered a crushing heel kick, driving them into the ground. Writhing in pain, the two foxes wondered why they couldn't sense the rest of their race. Liu Bo told them to stop overthinking it. This was the end. He unleashed an electric explosion, finishing them off completely. From afar, Zhang Ping observed and remarked that Liu Bo was indeed strong. Sissy replied that of course he was. After all, he was the leader of their division. But Zhang Ping couldn't help but comment that Liu Bo's outfit looked like something straight out of a Super Saiyan. Stizzy received a notification that multiple beasts were invading the city, and if too many creatures got through, the celestial curtain would overload. She told Zhang Ping that they would have to deal with the other creatures, and she would send someone to watch over the blacksmith shop. Zhang Ping asked who she had been talking to on the phone, and Sizzy explained that it was a big boss whom he would meet one day. Sizzy broke down the power levels. Low-level creatures were between level 1 and 10, and Zhang Ping was currently level 4. Mid-tier levels were below 20, where most foxes resided. Apex creatures like Jinbo at level 32 were at the highest level before reaching the king rank, which was level 40 or higher, a level where some foxes operated. As they walked outside the city, Zhang Ping realized it had been a long time since he had been in a place like this. He asked what kind of plants were growing around them. Suddenly, Sizzy grabbed his arm as one of the plants released electricity. A green bubble floated up and exploded, spraying liquid everywhere. Stizzy warned him to be careful. It was actually acid. She pointed to a rabbit and told Zhang Ping that it would be his challenge while she checked the surroundings. Zhang Ping analyzed the rabbit and saw that it was level 9. Even though it looked harmless, he knew he couldn't let his guard down and had to finish it quickly. He attacked with his dagger, knowing that the first strike was the most important. However, the rabbit didn't even try to dodge. Zhang Ping quickly followed up with a pearl fist, but the rabbit released poison from its ears. Zhang Ping realized he was still quite useless. The rabbit hopped around, activating poison traps from various plants. Zhang Ping commanded his body to dodge while trying to figure out what was happening. Clearly, the rabbit had insane reflexes, and his sneaky attack had been useless. Worse, a creature was luring him into an area filled with acid. The rabbit was fast and intelligent. This wasn't going to be easy. Zhang Ping noticed something strange. The acid wasn't burning him. Maybe the fire in his body was evaporating the acid on contact. The rabbit launched another series of attacks, but Zhang Ping responded with a barrage of flames, easily blocking the assault. Since the acid was liquid, the fire evaporated it instantly. Zhang Ping understood why Sizzy had assigned him this task. Despite how dangerous these creatures were, he had a clear advantage. The rabbit lunged, puzzled as to why Zhang Ping wasn't being consumed by the acid. Zhang Ping tried to defend himself but had trouble understanding the creature's movements. Worse, the rabbit's claws were also coated in acid. The creature had realized that long-range attacks wouldn't work, so it had come in close. Zhang Ping now had to envelop his body in flames to burn the acid from its claws. However, his flame reserves were limited. He charged at the rabbit, asking if it thought it was the only one with tricks. Zhang Ping tried a series of strikes, but the rabbit dodged. Finally, they were face to face, and Zhang Ping said there was no escape now. He had trapped the rabbit in a fire tornado. The problem was that he only had 3 flame reserves left. He stabbed at the rabbit, but it dodged and his reserves hit 0. However, that was exactly what Zhang Ping wanted. He began walking through the flames he had created, absorbing the fire and partially refilling his reserves. He coated his dagger in flames and struck the rabbit square in the back. The creature fell dead, but Zhang Ping realized that without matching its level, he probably still needed to finish it off. And so he did with a lot of determination. As a result, all his stats increased by 2 points, which was strange since he hadn't leveled up. The system explained that each level up became harder, so sometimes, when training or defeating enemies, he would only gain stat boosts. Zhang Ping, still at level 4, lamented how hard it was to level up. Poor guy. But then he heard a strange sound behind him, a legion of not-so-happy rabbits. Worse, Zhang Ping only had 2 flame reserves left, and there were far more rabbits than he could handle, including some huge muscular ones. He muttered that at least it was enough to activate the pendant and started running in desperation, calling for Sister Sizzy to help. But the rabbits were smart. They cut off his escape route. The area behind him was packed, and the rabbits were clearly coordinating their attacks. A barrage of poison was heading his way, and Zhang Ping had no way to dodge. But suddenly, an ice barrier rose up, saving him. He knew who it was. Sister Sizzy had arrived to save the day. She warned him that these bullet rabbits were in berserker mode, so she would have to take care of them, already preparing to send a wave of attacks in their direction. With that, the fools were all chased out of the forest, drenched and defeated. Now they looked cute, didn't they? But they were still damned creatures. Zhang Ping couldn't help but think, these cursed things only look adorable after they're dead. Sizzy, ever so cruel, snapped her fingers and everything turned to ice. The entire wave of creatures became frozen pillars. Sissy remarked that she'd only been gone for a minute, so how did this many creatures show up? Zhang Ping, of course, said he had no idea. She responded that the worst part was that this didn't seem to be the end. Another legion was coming their way. But instead of attacking, these creatures were headbutting one of their own that was trapped in the ice. They didn't even care that a girl was preparing a sword. It was as if they were all fixated on completing a single objective. However, Sizzy wasn't about to help them, and even though the creatures looked cute after death, she showed no mercy and finished them off. Since the whole pack was focused on the one in the middle, Sizzy knew there had to be something inside its body. She reached out and commanded it to release. The ice shattered along with the creature, and inside they found a spiritual control pill. Zhang Ping asked what it was, mentioning that it smelled nice. Sissy explained that some organizations used it to control mutated beasts. Usually, this was done by the Zhu clan of tamers. It seemed that after all this time, they were finally making a move. The pill emitted a strong scent that only mid-tier beasts could sense. It made them crave the pill, and once they consumed it, they lost control and became mindless. However, the Zhu clan somehow had the ability to control these creatures, which was still a mystery. Sizzy crushed the pill, explaining that if it weren't destroyed, another beast might consume it. But it was clear that there was a connection between these beasts and the pill, and they would have to investigate whether the Zhu clan was responsible. Before that, though, they would continue training just outside the wall. What they didn't know was that a hooded figure had been eavesdropping on their conversation. Zhang Ping had a feeling, though, that Sizzy already had her blade ready. Her attack sliced through a tree, but the intruder had already vanished. Zhang Ping asked why she'd done that out of nowhere. Sissy told him to forget it, questioning whether she was imagining things. A week passed, and all the foxes from the blacksmith area had gathered. The dangerous Luz and Yuki were among them, but of course they were just horrid foxes in disguise. Beast attacks were becoming more frequent, and they wondered if it was Zemming's doing. Still, Luz wasn't going to rely on him, as it was time for her to make her own move. She told the others that, as many of them knew, humans had discovered a way to break free from mental control. Most of the foxes had disappeared from the blacksmith region, so everyone would head there. Their plan was to spread chaos and make it look like they were acting impulsively. That way, Luz could observe who would appear, allowing them to eliminate all threats. Meanwhile, back in the forest, the dumb bullet rabbits were still standing around. Zhang Ping sneaked up behind them. Since it was nighttime, he had his evasion ability active, allowing him to strike without mercy. For the past week, he'd been hunting these cursed rabbits and had reached level 6. Additionally, he had become familiar with all their attack patterns. First, he easily neutralized their long-range attacks using his flames. Typically, they would cover themselves in steel and try to attack or escape. Since the acid they used was flammable, it made it even easier to eliminate the ones covered in steel. He had also been using the scarlet scales to recover his energy, so the flames he used never ran out. This was the technique he called Flame Devourer, or maybe not, because even he thought that name was a bit cringe. The problem was that he had already used up all the snake scales he'd collected, but with so many kills, it should be enough to level up again. Finally, Zhang Ping reached level 7 and he was thrilled. His contract gem advanced to level 5 as well. He had thought the gem was connected to his level, but unfortunately, from levels 4 to 6, he hadn't gained any new abilities. He was eager to find out what power he would gain this time and really hoped it would be something combat-related. But just then, one of the rabbits changed expression. It took on a dark form and a purple aura began to emanate from it. Zhang Ping was confused. After all, that rabbit was supposed to be dead. But since it wasn't, he decided to use his last flame reserve to finish it off. He laughed, saying it seemed like the rabbit liked coming straight at him. But when he went to stab the creature, it caught his hand and dodged the attack. Zhang Ping realized it might be a spiritual creature and wondered if it was the avenger of the rabbits. Not that it mattered to him. He swung his blade, commanding it to die. The creature collapsed, shriveled and weak on the ground. Zhang Ping wondered since when these cursed rabbits had such a technique and started searching for a spiritual control pill. Instead, he found a strange purple object but had no idea what it was. He tried several analysis attempts, all of which failed. He kept trying until finally the analysis worked. It was revealed to be nether essence, which came from the testicle of a black goat. Once again, Zhang Ping forced the analysis to try and see a memory of the item. Finally, he glimpsed the black goat fighting a horde of creatures. The beast went 1 on 30 and it easily started decimating all the creatures, or so it seemed. Suddenly, one of the creatures landed a bite on it, and it appeared that both of them had died. Zhang Ping felt that the orb had some kind of effect, but he didn't know how to activate it. Besides, the place it came from was pretty disgusting. He muttered to himself that he was an insignificant, useless insect who didn't have the luxury of choice. Harsh on himself, but he consumed the orb anyway. Immediately, he felt a shock, screaming as he couldn't understand what was happening. Suddenly, he remembered the moment when he hugged Jingyao and how she had turned into a fox soon after. She had told him that no matter what he encountered in the future, he needed to survive. Zhang Ping reassured her in his mind that he wouldn't die, not until he killed all those damn foxes. With that, he gained the nether body, which allowed him to convert the fear of others into nether energy. Each percentage of fear generated a manifestation that represented 10% of his current attack power. With fully recharged energy, he could unleash an attack with 1000% power. It was a perfect ability, both offensively and defensively. The most impressive part was that his growth potential increased by 3 stars because of this. Clearly, the nether body was more powerful than he had anticipated. But suddenly, Zhang Ping started crying and even he didn't understand why. He couldn't tell if it was sadness, joy, or regret, but he swore he would avenge Jingyao soon. At that moment, a group of men carrying some things approached him. One of them asked if the kid was okay, but the other told him to leave Zhang Ping alone, as it wasn't their problem. Zhang Ping slowly stood up, his Hour of Darkness ability active, and said he was fine. However, the men ran off in a panic, which only fueled Zhang Ping's nether energy. It seemed like he was going to have to cause a little mischief in this world. The most interesting part was that the nether energy could form any shape he wanted. Curious about its strength, he swung to strike toward a tree. Even a blade created from just 1 point of nether energy sliced through the tree like paper. He then slashed through the falling trunk, cutting it into neat cubes like something out of Minecraft. He created a small shield that cost 10 nether energy points and easily blocked everything. This was going to be his trump card against high-level beasts. Suddenly, Sizzy appeared behind him, shouting for him. She approached, readying an attack, and asked if he'd seen the nether beast that had been detected nearby. Zhang Ping, feeling awkward, realized he had to explain what had happened. Sizzy asked what the deal was with him eating the nether essence, accusing him of having a death wish for consuming something so dangerous without knowing what it was. Of course, Zhang Ping explained that he had done it because his analysis hadn't indicated any danger. He said he had been calm about it, as if anything had gone wrong, he could have ordered his body to vomit it out. Sizzy, however, questioned what he would have done if that hadn't been possible, if the item had been a parasite that took control of his body. Startled, Zhang Ping asked if something like that had happened before. Sizzy explained that nether creatures were completely unknown entities. They didn't have a specific form and usually hid inside other creatures. When the host died, they condensed into an organ, and when another animal consumed it, they took control. The point was that nether creatures specialize in infecting those who consume them. Zhang Ping realized he had made a stupid mistake. The intense pain he had felt when he consumed the essence was likely the creature trying to take control of his body. However, since he felt fine, maybe that meant the creature had failed. Stizzy said that because Zhang Ping had absolute control over himself, the beast hadn't been able to steal his body. Still, she warned him that if he showed any signs of mutation, she'd have to cut him down. Zhang Ping apologized, and just then, a spider descended between the two of them, shouting surprise at Sizzy. Embarrassed, Sizzy tried to swing her sword at the creature but missed, and it scuttled away. Zhang Ping noticed that Sizzy was terrified of it, and she clung to him all flustered. He thought to himself that she still had the same fear of insects she had when they were kids. He remembered a time when he ran over to her, proudly showing her a beetle the size of her head. He admitted that even he would have been scared of that thing. But Sizzy had swatted it away, making it run off, and Zhang Ping was sad, saying he had wanted to be friends with it. Sizzy asked why he wanted a beetle as a friend when there were so many people at the orphanage who could be his friends. He replied that he knew that, but eventually all those people would leave and he'd end up alone. But Sizzy hugged him and said that no matter what happened, they would always be friends. Of course, she had made that promise, but had abandoned him later and nearly killed him. Yet he forgave her. What a surprise. Now, however, he found himself in an awkward position as she leaned in for a hug, asking why he was squeezing her so tightly. Sizzy told him that he had been lucky this time, but it was important for him to remember that the world was full of dangerous things. From now on, he couldn't rely on luck alone. Zhang Ping thought that even though Sizzy seemed so cold after joining the squad, she was always concerned about him, even if she didn't always show it. She received a message and said, "Understood." Zhang Ping asked what was going on. She explained that his training and investigation would be paused for now because they needed to return to Pearl City. It seemed that Liu Bo had been injured, and they needed to go back to offer support. Zhang Ping was shocked that someone as strong as Liu Bo had been hurt and asked why they didn't call the other groups for help. Sissy explained that they couldn't alert anyone to their presence, and besides, things outside the wall were a mess. On the way back, it was explained that when the cataclysm began, they erected walls to protect what little was left. Because of this, traveling beyond the wall was extremely dangerous, and only a few independent awakened ones had the courage to do so. There were a few villages around Pearl City that hadn't yet been taken over by creatures. At sea, there were numerous apex-level creatures, and no one had any idea what was on the other side. When they arrived at the base, someone explained that they had been using the celestial curtain to monitor the foxes when suddenly, many of them appeared on Blacksmith Street, so they went there to resolve it. But it turned out to be a trap. Jinbo had been injured and was still recovering, so for the time being, Sisi would have to take responsibility and ensure the city's safety. Humbly, Zhanping asked if she needed help. Sisi humbly declined, telling him to return to the blacksmith shop and that she'd send him a message if anything came up. With that, the two parted ways and Zhanping wished them well. Finally, he was able to relax a little after so many days of training outside the city. He was curious to see how Jimin's training had been going, but then he noticed something strange. The people in the city seemed frozen in place. Someone approached and called out to him. Zhanping used his analysis ability, which failed 66 times, but eventually succeeded. However, he could only tell that the man was using an identity-hiding ability. The man commented that it seemed Zhanping could see the people, and that right now, he must be trying to analyze his abilities. He congratulated Zhanping, saying that normally an analysis-type awakened could only use their ability 10 times, but here, he was with no limitations. Zhanping was shocked at how this man could tell he was trying to analyze him and asked if he needed help with anything. Despite his fear, the man exuded an incredibly terrifying aura. Zhanping stood his ground. The old man asked if he wanted to have some fun. Zhanping did nothing, and the man asked why he wasn't starting. Zhanping responded that there was no reason to fight him, but the man questioned whether he had no reason to become stronger or if his quest for vengeance in South Nile was just a lie. Instantly, Zhanping was in his face, demanding he repeat himself. But strangely, reality seemed to shatter around him. The man teleported, and Zhanping thought he was behind him. As he turned, the man blocked his punch and said that Zhanping still had a lot to learn. Zhanping replied that they'd find out soon enough and unleashed a flame right at the man's face. However, the fire passed through, causing no damage at all. The man reappeared in the distance, saying that he had had his fun and now it was his turn. What Zhanping had hit was just a false image, and the man unleashed a slash. Zhanping was barraged with ice attacks and wondered how this lunatic had so many abilities. He began using a bit of his nether reserve to dodge, and when he couldn't, he pulled up his shield to defend himself. All of this was just to get the man to lower his guard. He sacrificed his shield and launched an attack in the man's direction. As the shield blocked the man's vision, Zhanping came from the side to land a finishing blow. The old man said Zhanping was clever, but he wasn't strong enough. He emitted a light that pushed Zhanping back, sending him crashing to the ground like a fool. The old man remarked that it was impressive for someone at Zhanping's level to have so much power. Zhanping realized he was pinned to the ground by some kind of telekinetic pressure and couldn't move. The old man said it looked like they would need to have a conversation. Zhanping immediately realized this man was far above Jinbo or even Sizzy. The only person with more power that he'd ever heard of was the captain of the purging squad. Zhanping, trying to be clever, asked how he could refer to that person. The old man said Zhanping could call him whatever he wanted and questioned if he really didn't know who he was. Considering the man had information about Jing Yao, Zhanping guessed he must be from the purging squad. He knew the captain's name was Sidu Shibai, but wondered why the captain would reveal himself to him. Zhanping asked why the man was there. The old man warned him not to think too hard about it, especially since he couldn't block a mind reading. He explained that in the 2 years he had been in Pearl City, he had never seen an awakened one with an unlimited type ability, Of course, that had piqued his curiosity. Jiang Ping asked if such a thing as an unlimited level truly existed, as he had thought Apex was the highest level. Shibai explained that normal awakened individuals could only have a single ability, no matter how strong they became. However, unlimited users could continuously gain new abilities as they grew stronger, and there was something he was extremely curious about. Could his unlimited level ability, called Path of Others, copy Jiang Ping's contract gem ability? Of course, he wasn't asking for this test for free. Jiang Ping would be rewarded, even if it didn't work. Jiang Ping wanted to know what would happen if he refused to test this. Shibai said that was his decision, but he should take a look at the gift first. It was a bracelet called Golden Treasure, which had the storage ability that Shibai had used long ago. He added that Jiang Ping should know what that meant. Jiang Ping was excited. A storage ability was perfect for someone like him, who had abilities that consumed items. The old man then told him to raise his hand, and a strange blue energy began to flow. Shibai looked thoughtful and sighed. Jiang Ping asked if he was finished, and the man replied that he was. Unfortunately, Shibai couldn't copy Jiang Ping's contract gem ability, nor could he copy any abilities that Jiang Ping had stolen, which meant that the boy was truly unique. Despite this outcome, the item was now Jiang Ping's. However, as soon as Jiang Ping took the bracelet, he felt something strange. His analysis revealed how the item had been created. A girl with magical powers had been bound in ropes, and golden liquid had been poured over her. The lives of humans and awakened ones were used to create items like this. Jiang Ping asked Shibai if all items like this were created in such a cruel way. Shibai explained that in the 2 centuries he lived, many items had been created like this, even though it was strictly prohibited. He had tried several times to destroy the item, but perhaps Jiang Ping could make better use of it. Jiang Ping then asked what the city had been like 200 years ago and if lives had always been wasted in this way. Shibai nodded, explaining that 200 years ago, the Zhu Beast family ruled the city and everyone was a slave to their desires. Men worked all day just to have something to eat. Beautiful women were turned into toys for the masters. Those with any potential were brainwashed into becoming tools. Anyone who lost their usefulness was fed to the Zhu family's creatures, and awakened ones with rare abilities were turned into ingredients for certain equipment. After the Zhu family committed so many atrocities, a revolution began. After years of fighting, the Zhu family was finally overthrown. Jiang Ping acknowledged this history, and Shibai asked if he wanted to know more. Jiang Ping asked why, if Shibai was so strong, he didn't just go and take out the fox leader by himself. Before answering, Shibai shielded their conversation from the world. He explained that it wasn't that he didn't want to, it was that he couldn't. Jiang Ping might think the city's defenses were weak since they had been invaded by the foxes, but in truth, Pearl City's defenses were incredibly robust. The patrol and investigation teams could easily detect any beast that approached the city. Once the signal was given, the purging squad was always ready and dealt with any of the beasts. Additionally, the city had an artifact called the Pearl of the Sun and Moon, which capped the power of any creature within the city at level 40. So even if a king-level creature invaded, it would only have the power of an apex level. No doubt about it, Shibai was the strongest apex-level being. The problem was that even though they knew who the enemy was, they didn't know who was pulling the strings behind everything. Jiang Ping questioned whether Shibai was suggesting that there was a traitor among them. Shibai explained that the city's lord had gone missing, and aside from him, only a few people had control of the artifact. There were remnants of the Zhu family lurking in the shadows, angry at the loss of their reign. These remnants could deactivate the Pearl of the Sun and Moon and had opened the gates to allow the celestial foxes to enter. It was clear that they were behind everything. Jiang Ping asked why they didn't just wipe out these fools. Shibai explained that they had been trying to eradicate them for over 100 years, but a new seed always sprouted. Likely the Zhu family had been entrenched in the city for so long that they had many hidden connections that the purging squad didn't know about. Jiang Ping realized that this was why the fox invasion never made sense. What was the true goal of the Zhu family? Was the lord dead or alive? And why had the beasts recently started to stir more frequently? That's why Shibai was being so cautious, because if he were to die, the city would lose its greatest weapon. Worse still, if he were captured and controlled, it would be the end of Pearl City. Stitter Shibai then reiterated that while he couldn't copy Jiang Ping's ability, they still needed him. He asked Jiang Ping if he was willing to join the purging squad. Without hesitation, Jiang Ping shook his hand and said, "Of course I am." Meanwhile, at the Soul Iron Forge, Jimin asks Rose why she's been repairing so much equipment lately. She says she's just trying to make the best use of her free time. Then Jimin asks when Jiang Ping is coming back since it's been a few days since he left. Rose says it must be all the missing that's making her so distracted. She replies that it's not that, it's just that during the day she has no one to help her train. And she keeps wondering how he's doing outside the wall and if he's encountered any danger. Rose says that kind of talk is identical to a wife's. It seems she can't go a day without a boy. She turns to the barrel and says she'll stop teasing her. But she warns that she doesn't need to worry because the creatures outside the wall are all marked. So as long as he stays in the right regions, he'll be safe. Jimin then questions if there are other villages outside Pearl City capable of doing that. Rose says yes, there are a few, but they are very backward and xenophobic. Most of them still worship bestial gods and make sacrifices to them. So if you ever come across one, it's best to flee. Jimin asks if they are human, and if so, couldn't they just communicate with them? However, Rose warns her to be cautious with that thought, saying they are actually much more dangerous than the beasts when it comes to the outside world. Some of them wear terrifying masks, and you never see them coming. At that moment, Jimin asks if it's like that thing showing up behind them. Rose says yes, it really is quite similar to that one. That's when she notices the thing is really there. And our guy shows up like a fool, scaring the poor girls. But Rose doesn't forgive and gives him a good kick in the groin. Well, boy, your little plan fell apart. A few moments later, our boy decides to pretend nothing happened and tells Miss Rose that was a bit cruel, but she wants to know who he is. Our girl removes the mask, revealing it's him. The two of them want to scold this rascal for playing around and scaring them, but then he teases her hair, saying he's a rascal for going away and coming back just to give them a scare. Our girl says she heard them talking about some scary villages and decided to play along for fun. She asks if he finally finished his training, and he says yes and will stay by the walls for a while. She says that's perfect because she found some clues about a certain Shanshan. She was planning to go to the city, so it's good he's staying to take care of Jimin and her uncle. Before he can say anything, she tells him to go enjoy it because someone really missed him and was wondering when he'd come back. Immediately, Jimin runs off, saying she wants to return to her room because it's late and she wants to rest. However, she stops in front of the door. She calls for our boy, who gets a bit confused, but she turns around smiling, saying she's happy he returned safely. For Zhangping, this was the first time he felt at home since all of this began. She even jumps, startled, when the old man asks why he has that silly grin, and tells our boy to tell Miss Rose that the old man is extremely ill and that she should stop leaving the city. Our boy asks if it's true, and the old man smacks him on the head, telling him just to follow the plan. Zhangping asks why, and the old man explains that Shanshan has been missing for a long time, so something cruel may have happened. He knows how strong his daughter is, but with her taking such risks, eventually, she'll encounter something bad too. That's why he's playing dumb to stop her from taking so many risks. Our boy feels a little awkward with the old man's plans. The old man tells him just to follow the script. That girl is extremely loyal, and if she knows he's a bit sicker, she'll stop risking so much. He warns that our boy has a real talent for forging. His daughter is good, but she never put in much effort and never wanted to. So this next week, it'll be him who really teaches our boy the essence of forging. Even though it's not a super secret technique, it's a unique skill of the Liu family, so he better pay attention. Excited Zhangping says he won't disappoint, when suddenly he hears a voice calling his name, saying it's her. It was the spirit of Jingyeo telling him to keep going because she was waiting for him. Once again, he's confused about why he keeps having these hallucinations. As the old man planned, his daughter stayed more in the city, and Zhangping started learning the techniques. He said he had a lung disease from smoking so much, and his daughter told him to stop smoking. Meanwhile, our boy has also been practicing with Nether to create much more precise forms with energy. Jimin finally mastered the 3 basic styles of the Beast King. And that night, when he heard Su Jingyo's voice, he felt something familiar and, just to be sure, contacted the purging squad. He asked Shibai if he's sure there are no more foxes around the blacksmith's district. Shibai assures him that there aren't, as they cleared out the entire district. This made Zhangping want to understand why he occasionally heard her voice. What if Su Jingyo wasn't really dead and was instead waiting for him somewhere out there? Maybe for revenge, for answers, or waiting for him to unmask the one pretending to be her. The scene shifts to 3 days later. A man approaches a door and places a metal bar across it. As soon as it opens, he sees a girl sleeping. He approaches to grab the poor thing, saying the drug he used worked perfectly. He pulls back the blanket, saying the rumors that she had the best curves and jade-colored skin were indeed true. And today, he would finally have his way. However, at that moment, a dark aura approaches and calls out the name Xiaofan. The man turns around, wanting to know who's there. The eerie voice starts talking, saying he's so ugly that only his mother could love him and that he's only fit to be buried 5 palms deep. He's always been hated by all women, which is why he's seeking revenge on them. And today, this shadow was there to take the soul he never deserved. At that moment, the man runs, knowing that his whole family should be unconscious because of what he did. So what kind of cursed ghost was following him? Until he's struck in the knee by a whip. He falls to the ground like a fool, and Zhangping's reservoir of fear begins to fill. The man starts crying, begging him to stay away. In that instant, the man wets himself and faints, and our boy wishes he had stayed awake a bit longer so he could draw more fear from him. But this marked the success of the first mission he took on. It was time to bring this man back to headquarters and let them deal with him. This man's skill was pharmaceutical mastery, which allowed him to create extremely potent drugs. In that moment, our boy has flashbacks of the things this man had done. What he was up to was obviously horrific. Using the drugs he created, he harmed numerous women. Seeing this left our boy shaken, and suddenly, the man started waking up on the ground. He turned to launch an attack, but it seemed to hit an aura. Zhangping turns into smoke, and the man wonders where that bastard went. However, our boy simply says, "Today you die." The man wonders why the poison he threw wasn't working. In the next second, he sees a small hand flying toward him, and Zhang Ping says that for every person he hurt, he'll take a blow. In a Saw-like style, things were about to begin. The man began taking a flurry of attacks without being able to react. He started agonizing, desperate. Time passed, and the man cried out that Zhang Ping was insane, saying that he should already be dead and that he wasn't normal. However, our boy replies that with today's technologies, he would still be saved. He points toward a door and says if he can make it to the door, he'll let him leave alive. Xiaofan gets excited, seeing a chance to survive. He's already thinking that when he recovers, he'll get revenge on this boy. There were still plenty of girls he hadn't enjoyed yet. All he had to do was reach that door and he'd survive. But when he stretches out his hand, the door isn't opening. He starts banging on it, demanding to know why it won't open. And our boy approaches, saying it seems he can't even open a door. Even after receiving such a great chance, he messed up. Then bam, Zhang Ping lashes him on the back with the whip. With that, our boy levels up once more. He'd always thought that killing the foxes would be enough to bring peace to Pearl City. But he realized it wouldn't be that simple. There are people like this man who don't deserve salvation. Then he hears another voice talking about Hanai Academy, saying today would be a special day. It was the perfect chance to capture her. Zhang Ping realizes he's going to have to teach another lesson. He tells the captain that he's already dealt with this scumbag, but found another one on the radar. The one relaying the messages is Manny, who controls the subspaces. Our boy warns Shibag and asks her it's true. She says there might be something strange since she can't feel what's happening over there. He then informs her that Zhang Ping seems to be heading to that location and tells her to report any situation that arises. She tells him to be careful, but reinforcements are on their way. The academy was surrounded by a red barrier. Inside, there were a few hooded figures. They had been searching for their target for 15 minutes, but still hadn't found her. One of them says they're in trouble because someone just breached the barrier. The chubby guy, panicking, says it looks like they've been discovered. However, the leader says it's impossible because they're using the dragon statue. But he warns that they're running out of time, so they need to find her soon. Our boy arrives at the entrance of the building. He starts analyzing the statue, trying to figure out what it is. The system explains that it's a dragon stone. If placed in 4 points, it creates a barrier that nullifies the perception of anyone inside. Our boy starts seeing a flashback of how that item was created. As usual, it involved the sacrifice of numerous lives, which is strange as that kind of item had been banned long ago. These people didn't seem to belong to other organizations, so maybe they were remnants of the Zhu family. The Zhu family in the last 2 months not only brought foxes but also beasts, and now they're targeting something at Hanhai Academy. It's still hard to understand what these guys' real goal is, but perhaps today at the academy, he'll begin to understand things. Then he sees someone approaching and decides to hide. With that, he activates the Nightwalker ability. From the perspective of the group, there was nothing there. The person who had apparently crossed the barrier was already gone. One of them says to turn off the lantern to conserve its energy. Afterward, they collect the dragon stone and leave without leaving any trace. However, our boy was there, observing and relaying the information that these guys were levels 20, 17, and 15. The lantern they were carrying concealed their presence, scent, and even identification details. The girl they were taking was named Chu Jumting, who had an extraordinary potential with a lot of stars. Moreover, she had the blood of a saint, which created a bond with any living creature. Zhang Ping realizes her ability is similar to a gem contract but much more advanced, as it works even without the person having to consume anything. The question remains, what does the Zhu family want with controlling this girl? However, it was obvious that he wasn't going to let these guys take her away like that. But suddenly, they seem to disappear. His analysis is interrupted and he wonders what happened. Amani, on the other hand, tells him that they're heading outside the city. Says he wouldn't make it in time, so our boy says he'll delay them. However, Shibai tells him to be careful and to consider his own safety. But our boy says he won't miss the chance to learn more about the Zhu family. The guys were already running outside the barrier, when one of them seemed to notice something. A strange other wolf came out in the bushes. The guys wondered why there was a creature like that right at the city's exit. Our boy's precision with form creation had improved a lot, but if he was analyzed, it would be risky. The guy decides to do just that to assess the creature's strength. But our boy notices the attempt to analyze him and interrupts it with an attack. Before the guy can do anything, he's already leaping. He's on the guy's back, ready to bite. The man dodges and tells Huang to hypnotize the creature. Huang spreads his arms and uses a technique telling the wolf to stay still. Zhang Ping's eyes go all zigzagged. He puts on a love-struck expression, and the chubby guy says the ability is ready. However, Zhang Ping has infinite mental energy, so this type of attack is useless against him. He decides to pretend he's under control and slowly approaches with a dumb look on his face. The chubby guy reaches out his hand and tells him not to move. But right at that moment, Zhang Ping swipes. He opens his jaws and is ready to strike at the throat. As the fool is being devoured, he calls for help from the leader. The leader tries to execute a technique, telling him to get out of there. And a golden glow throws Zhang Ping far away. However, our boy managed to level up to 9, and the gem contract rose to level 6. The guy was using overwhelming telekinesis, and even Zhang Ping within the nether aura couldn't resist. With that, the poor guy is crushed. He tries to move, but it's impossible. Then the man says that the wolf's name is Zhang Ping, level 9, and he belongs to the Soul Iron Forge and the Purging Squad. He wonders why a worthless human like that was pretending to be a rat. But since he was one of Shibei's slaves, he wouldn't leave here alive. Although the guy's skills weren't great, the items he had were extremely dangerous. Clearly, the Zhu family had been depending on equipment they've been accumulating for a long time. The good thing for him is that even with restricted movement, he could still use the nether. What he found strange was that the gravity guy, instead of defending himself, was only trying to dodge. And then the guy jumps to the side and fires an electric arrow. Our boy has to use a good amount of nether to create a protective shield. The guy says that this type of ability our boy is using has a limited energy supply, so soon enough, it would run out. Our boy realizes that if the guy isn't trying to dodge, maybe it's time to try the next move. Another shock arrow comes, and he spends 15 nether to defend himself. At the same time, he buries some of his energy into the ground. He spends another 15 to launch a series of attacks. The other guy steps in to protect his friend. But what they haven't noticed is that nether had already seeped out from under their feet. Our boy pulled his shikamaru, controlling both of their arms, and they couldn't use their items. At that moment, he approaches, saying that with their hands bound, they're useless. He pulls out a nether dagger and stabs the guy in the stomach who can't move. However, the guy activates telekinesis on his own arm to hit Zhang Ping's arm. With that, he congratulates Zhang Ping for the attempt but says that this is the end. However, in that moment, our boy releases all the flame he had stored up, and with that, the man has to throw him far away. But as he's sliding back, an electric arrow is already coming. And man, this one hits him in the chest. It looks like his clothes are fireproof, and the guys say he's got quite a few tricks up his sleeve too. It was a shame, but this was where it was going to end. However, Zhang Ping only replies that the time has come. The guy laughs, asking if he's talking about his own death. But as water flows over him, Zhang Ping says he was only buying time. One of them manages to defend and counterattack, but the other is already stabbed in the chest. The problem is that this time, our boy won't come out unscathed. However, at that very moment, Sizzy is already beside the guy, who realizes that this cursed woman killed his friend in one move. She slashes at him, and he defends himself with the tip of his bow. But her level is much higher, and the poor guy has no chance. He asks who she is, but she just ignores him. She keeps attacking the fool, leaving him no chance to escape. He already knows that in a few more seconds, he'll be dead. With no other choice, he had to use it and pulls a ring from his hand. He slips it on his finger, and suddenly it begins to glow with electricity. A lightning bolt starts to fall, and she tells him to stop. A gust of energy and wind rises to the sky. She approaches, at least relieved that Zhang Ping was alive. The man took advantage of the lightning to create distance between the two of them. It was a shame that they couldn't capture anyone from the Zhu family alive. Meanwhile, our boy is on the ground, completely drained. Then Manny tells her to hurry back and bring Zhang Ping. Sizzy asks what happened. She explains that the illusory curtain had been breached. Man, it's the dangerous Lu Xiu. The fool, who I think is that vice president, asks why he was summoned. She questions how the preparations for the beasts outside the city were going. He says that, just as she ordered, everything was in place. It's at that moment that the giant lightning bolt falls in the distance. She wants to know what that sound was. The vice president recognizes it as the myriad call of thunder, which means the guy he sent out ran into trouble. It seems like he's up to something sneaky. He says it was probably just a random thunderbolt, but Lu Yu questions if he really didn't see anything unusual. Trembling, he says no. Everything seemed perfectly calm. She then asks why he seems so nervous. He assures her she can trust him. He's been tracking thunder for a long time and knows each one. She realizes the bastard is lying. And the problem is that outside the wall, she can't sense things clearly. It was exactly like that other time when that guy was about to die. But as soon as she turned the corner, he completely disappeared in an instant. There must be someone of high level using illusion tag techniques in this city. Normally, humans don't affect the foxes, but this one was messing with their perception. Maybe the entire city was under some kind of illusion. Man, she casts a jutsu and activates a domain expansion. The illusory barrier begins to crumble. Stizzy wonders where that girl the men tried to kidnap had gone. Stizzy turns to Zhang Ping and says she doesn't know why, but the barrier was disappearing. Our boy is lying on the ground like a fool, calling out her name. She points to the side and tells her to use that lantern. Meanwhile, Lu Xiu's energy continues to sweep through the city, examining every point, trying to figure out what's happening. Finally, she senses she has found the Dan Rat, a man carrying the thing on his shoulder, whom she had almost forgotten about in all the chaos. Immediately, she jumps toward him, and the man says she better wait. Now he knows there's a problem because he couldn't stall her. Everyone receives the message about one of the Purging Squad agents named Zhang Ping. He encountered two of their agents, who are now dead. Because of the boy, they had no choice but to use the myriad call of thunder to ensure at least one of them survived. Besides the squad, Zhang Ping is also linked to the Soul Iron Forge. At that moment, one of them asks what Lu Xiu is doing there. And suddenly, someone screams. The man tells Zijin to explain what's going on. However, at that moment, the old man appears and says the plan has failed. Zijin, who provided the information, had been killed by a fox. The problem is that the saint, who poses the greatest threat to the foxes, is now under their control. Lu Xiu knows she can't kill the saint, so she plans to send her back to the Lord's mansion. The man asks what they're going to do now that they won't be able to control the foxes. The old man says he knows of a passage that leads directly to the outer entrance of the mansion. Only he knows about that place, and they can release a bunch of beasts to make the foxes' lives difficult. That way he could take advantage of the chaos and rescue the saint. Another one says it's easier said than done, especially since Princess Lu Kaiyu will be guarding that place. The man says they'll have to use a plan to lure Zhang Ping since she's probably hunting him. If they send an attack on the Soul Iron Forge, Zhang Ping will go to defend it and Lu Kaiyu will show up to kill him. While the purging squad and the foxes are fighting at the forge, they'll take advantage of the situation to cause chaos at the mansion. One of them says this would mean breaking all ties they have with the foxes, so failure isn't an option. Obviously, no one must know they are descendants of the Zhu family. The guy with the black eye warns that the fate of the Zhu family is in Zemin's hands. Stizzy is asking if he's awake and how he's feeling. Our boy gets up, wondering where he is. He explains that he's at the purging squad base because they didn't have time to take him anywhere else. He sees Jinbo lying there and asks if he's really that badly injured. He explains that Jinbo fought Lu Kaiyu, who seems to be on the move. At that moment, someone says he's already standing. It's Suji, who says he fought against 3 people 10 levels above him and still walked away after taking one down. Usually, someone dies instantly if they fight someone 5 levels higher. Sizzy introduces the girl, saying she's the one with the solar recharge, and that she took care of him. Our boy says he was lucky, and it's thanks to them that he made it out alive. The girl replies that it wasn't a big deal, but besides that, she can't maintain the illusory curtain anymore. Enough chit-chat, he needs to explain everything that happened, as they need more information. The girls, it seems, have been working double shifts to try to understand what's going on. They're all asking to be fired for a few days. Manny says the cursed Xiaowei was awake, so it was time for her to help. But clearly, she wasn't that awake. She keeps getting beaten every hour to try and wake her up. At that moment, Shibai enters the room and sees the two fighting like madmen. He says he really needs more staff because they're being forced to work so hard. Then our boy walks into the room. Shibai explains that the Zhu family and the foxes seem to be working together, but that no longer appears to be the case. And the fact that they used that dragon shows they were already aware of the illusory curtain. He knows that submission isn't the Zhu family's style. This means they're just waiting for the right moment to deal with the foxes. The headmaster of Rai Academy, known as Shan Howie, died 14 years ago without any heirs. But soon after, a girl named Shen Junting was announced as granddaughter. She didn't seem to have any connection to Pearl City, so she must be from a village outside. It was likely the Academy's headmaster who wanted to keep her completely hidden. Because of this, they have no records of her, and it's impossible to know what ability she possesses. However, Zhang Ping says he knows the ability because he analyzed her earlier. What she possesses is called the blood of the saint. Shibai wonders if she could be from the ancestral sacred village. However, that would be too much of a coincidence. Meanwhile, our boy explains her ability. At that same moment in the Lord's mansion, Junting excitedly asks if her sister always lives there and why she seems so angry. Clearly furious, she says it's nothing important. Junting tells her to drink some tea because sweet things make you happy when you're mad. However, obviously Lu Xiu isn't in the mood for jokes and tells her to die. A terrible aura passes over the girl, but she opens her eyes and glares with a golden light. Xiu's attack seems to have no effect and the girl pretends nothing happened. She offers her a cookie, asking if she's not in the mood to eat it. She pops it into her mouth, saying the cookie is really tasty. Meanwhile, Xiu can't understand why she can't kill this girl who's all smiles, saying it's delicious. Every time Xiu tries to strike, at the very moment she's about to hit, she feels ill and cancels the attack. Junting spits out the tea, saying it's terrible and that the person who made it is a complete idiot, who just so happens to be Xiu herself. The girl leaves, saying she'll prepare a new batch of tea and tells her to wait there. Meanwhile, Lu Xiu wonders why she feels so ill every time she tries to kill the girl. She's a princess of the Celestial Fox clan, so clearly this wasn't her own weakness. There was something about this girl that she had no idea about. Meanwhile, back at the base, Sizzy tells our boy that her water is similar to the nether. The main difference is that she can easily recover and reuse the water. However, once his nether is depleted, it's gone. That's because he still doesn't know how to convert tangible nether into something intangible again. It's like someone who knows how to turn water into a liquid, then a solid, then gas, and back into a liquid again. Our boy thinks the advantage of being intangible is that he doesn't need to walk around with armor all the time. But Sizzy tells him to stop thinking about that and focus on the fight. Take that fool always thinking about Naruto. Now the rascal knows how to use nether to create a barrier that reduces the impact of attacks. She sends a blizzard his way, saying his luck is that it's easy for him to collect more nether since all he has to do is feel fear. And the boy was there, breakdancing on the floor, until he realizes that the ice on the ground had turned into water. He had focused too much on what was coming from above and got distracted, ending up captured. Stissy says the big problem, however, is that if the enemy doesn't fear him, he'll quickly run out of nether. But Zhang Ping says that if an attack is strong enough, that's all he needs. And right then, the dagger flies toward her. She says she wants to find out how strong this so-called attack of his is. She creates a water prison as the energy accumulates, but the dagger easily pierces through the barrier. Our boy says it looks like he won since her barrier couldn't resist that. She dissolves the barrier and says that this nether energy must come from some kind of king-level beast, but she warns him that if it had been a real fight, he wouldn't have stood a chance. Suddenly, her waters begin to bubble and the boy is burned. She tells him he needs to study more and understand the true nature of his ability. She can transform her water into ice, hot water, or even steam, and each of these options has the potential to change the pace of a fight. He asks her what she thinks of the giant spider he made. With the fear she felt, he recovered Sandy and Nether, and she slaps him across the face. But the crazy boy starts drinking the water she threw at him. She is startled and tells him to spit it out because the water she uses is either extremely pure or toxic. Our boy asks for help, saying something strange is happening, and he can't control his body. Suddenly, his shorts fall down, and half of his body has turned into water. An arm starts to emerge from his chest, and he wants to know what's going on. That's when he realizes that he may have awakened a new ability. The Oniferous ability allowed him to consume any substance and have a 10% chance of adopting its composition, along with the pure water body, which granted resistance to any physical attack. Clearly, the level 6 gem was much stronger since it awakened 2 abilities. What he's curious about is exactly how this Oniferous works. Sizzy asks if he's really okay, and he explains that he's beginning to control how he can maintain his form. The water body and the nether body were quite similar, so he just had to use the same knowledge of form transformation. Out of nowhere, the fool turns into a puddle on the ground. He gets up like a stickman, saying it worked, or at least it should have worked. A while later, he was back to normal, and she was blushing. She turns around and tells him, for the love of God, to put some clothes on. He then explains what happened. He says that because he accidentally drank her water, it seems he gained an ability called Pure Water Body. Hearing this, Sizzy is shocked by his growth potential. The ability that's a dream for almost every water magic user was awakened without any effort. She turns to leave, and he asks if she's okay. But at that moment, the alarm goes off. She asks what happened, and they request reinforcements because the Soul Iron Forge is under attack. She orders all units to be sent and says she's going to help. Our boy obviously wants to go, but she tells him to wait because it's a trap. He says not to worry, now he can turn into a puddle of water and slip away. She responds that she doesn't have time to convince him, so he better follow quickly. When they arrive at the forge, there are a bunch of fallen assassins. While our boy runs ahead, Sissy gives orders to find the assassins. Outside, our boy calls for Jimin and everyone. Out of the corner, Rose appears, looking completely wrecked, and calls out to him. He runs and asks if she's okay. She points to the side and says that both Jimin and the old man were hurt. A severed hand lies on the ground. Sissy tells him to take care of her while she checks on the other two. Man, the poor girl lost her arm. Our boy is devastated that this happened to her. She reassures him, saying it's okay, she won't die just because she's missing an arm. At that moment, people start coming out of the forge. Stizzy orders them to take everyone for treatment right away. She tells our boy not to worry. She was unconscious, but she'll be fine. Stizzy thanks him for being alive, but warns him to be careful, as he's made some extremely powerful enemies. He tells her not to worry and just focus on recovering. Stizzy then says that it looks like the forge is no longer safe, so they're going to move everyone outside the city. Our boy recognized the assassins' uniforms and knew it was the damn Zhu family who came to take him down. At that moment, someone comments on an energy fluctuation and asks if the two humans are involved. He recognizes the voice as Lu Xiu's. She sends an attack, saying she won't let any threat escape so easily. Our boy manages to grab Sissy and push her aside. Xiu says he's impressive. It seems he really sensed her attack coming. Sissy replies that she's fine, but finds it strange that she arrived so quickly, given that this operation was a secret. Our boy replies that somehow she must be observing the entire city. That's when Xiu seems to notice something. She asks if he's Zhang Ping. He says it's been a while since they last met and starts trying to analyze her. As his analysis progresses, Xiu says she's going to buy some time for the two of them and sends a blizzard her way. Xiu blocks it and realizes that her true identity has been exposed. She says it looks like they've figured out who's behind everything. She creates a portal to send an attack to Xiu's back, but Xiu raises a shield to defend herself. However, Xiu is completely destroyed by a single attack. She realizes that even with her identity exposed, she can't sense the attacks she creates. If that's the case, she wants to see her dodge this. She sends a flurry of attacks in all directions. Our boy, who can see the fox's attacks, starts relaying the coordinates. She decides to trust him since he's the only one who can see everything. With that, she begins dodging and cutting down each of the claws. Xiu quickly realizes that this is the one responsible. She prepares a claw and sends it in his direction, but he gives himself the order to dodge. As a result, he starts dancing around like a fool, but doesn't get hit by any attack. And Xiu already realizes that this bastard can see through their disguises. She sends another attack toward him and Sissy to make sure both of them die. However, for him, it's easy since his body moves naturally, and he keeps giving instructions. Xiu moves close and raises another barrier to save the two of them. Our boy comments that Xiu seems quite upset. Did she get rejected or something? Suddenly, she starts screaming and says that he's truly impressive for having escaped all the tests they conducted. But still today, he wouldn't leave alive. He was dodging 3 tails, but what would happen if she sent 3,000? His nether barrier starts to weaken. As the pressure increases, Shiyu says it's beautiful to watch him resist like this. The barrier is almost at 0. Finally, it breaks, and our boy wonders how it's possible that he couldn't delay her for even a second, even using everything he had. At that moment, a projection of Shibai warns him to listen carefully, as he would only have one chance. Just as Shiyu was about to break the barrier, a golden light descends from the sky, surrounding her with clouds. Shibai informs him that this is the opportunity he's been given. Her attack dissolves against the barrier. He grabs Sizzy's hand and runs like hell. Does he think he's going to kill this woman? He doesn't have the power for that. But, of course, she also says she's not going to let him escape so easily. She raises her hands and breaks the barrier that Shibai had created. With that, she begins ordering all the foxes, telling them to locate Zhangping and not let him escape. Moments later, they were already at the base of the purging squad. He passes all the information to Sister Rose and tells her to be careful, as it's no longer safe outside. He apologizes for getting them all involved in this. She tells him not to worry, it's just an arm. Besides, she should be the one thanking him for saving everyone's lives. He says she doesn't need to worry. He'll do his best to rebuild the forge. But for now, they'll have to stay hidden outside the city, as it's the only safe place. Meanwhile, Sizzy thinks to herself that our boy has grown so much, and she hadn't even noticed. At that moment, Rose mentions that the white-haired girl was waiting for him. Zhangping goes outside and asks what she wants with him. She asks why he called her Sizzy when he normally calls her big sister. Our boy feels embarrassed. He thought it was fine to call her something more familiar after everything they've been through together. But she says it's okay. He can call her whatever he wants, but they need to hurry. His identity had been exposed, and they would have to wait for further orders from the captain. But for all the help he's given to the purging squad, he was about to receive a reward. He asks what this golden blood is. She explains that it belongs to Jimbo. It provides extremely fast recovery and extends the lifespan of all veterans in this place. He's supposed to consume it and try to absorb one of the powers as he usually does with his technique. Additionally, there's a chance it could be passed down to descendants, so maybe the women will take more interest in him. He says he's not sure that's a guarantee, and besides, he doesn't have any women, so there's no reason to think that far ahead. Then he drinks the blood, hoping the oniferous ability activates. He asks if she felt anything, and she says that strangely, it doesn't seem like anything changed. Until, suddenly, his hand starts turning red. He analyzes it and sees that the oniferous ability is activated. Now he has the pure blood body, which accelerates the recovery process. He quickly realizes that the oniferous ability gives him an additional chance to gain limited powers. Sissy asks what's happening with his hand. Her glasses are turned off, and he notices she has a huge scar across her face and asks what happened. She says it's nothing serious, but our boy knows she's hiding something. She asks if he feels any other difference, and he says he seems to be aware of most of the creatures around him. It's as if he can blend in with them and heal wounds. She says that maybe with this ability, he can help his friend recover her arm. He says that from what he's sensing, as long as there's enough blood, he could reconstruct a human body with just a piece of skin. A pure water body provided defense, and a pure blood body provided recovery. She tells him to go help his friend right away. But before he leaves, our boy says he'd like to have a conversation with her later as friends, not as allies. Blushing slightly, she says that's fine. Meanwhile, in the forest outside the city, a flock of birds seems to be fleeing. That's because a legion of beasts is approaching. Man, those creatures are incredibly ugly. Back at the base, Manny seems to be keeping an eye on what Shibai is doing. He's reviewing the records from the sacred village. He replies that she might not remember, but they committed several terrifying acts when they were in power. It was at the beginning of everything, when the Zhu family of beast tamers were still considered heroes. They helped people survive that great calamity. At that time, the leader of the family, Zhu Shiyang, partnered with the bird of the sun god. He flapped his wings in the sky every day to bring light and warmth to the people of the city, and he continued doing this for 10 years until he died of exhaustion. After that, he was buried on Sunset Mountain, which is outside Pearl City. Some people who idolized him began to live near the tomb, and that's how the sacred village was formed outside the city. She says she understands, but asks what this has to do with what's happening now. He explains that every 100 years, a saint appears in that village. She has a bloodline that can protect them from any beast attack. Manny now understands and asks if he's saying that Junting might be the saint. Shibai says yes, and the Zhu family's plan was probably to use this girl to control the foxes. She says that makes sense, but it's strange that this saint appeared at the academy out of nowhere. Shibai says that sometimes these things are intentional. With her in the city, they can use the excuse that she's trapped there and launch an attack with the help of the villages. Manny asks why they would do something like that. He explains that 150 years ago, Pearl City was ruled by an extremely corrupt and dangerous woman. To prevent the history with the Zhu family from repeating, the purging squad, with the help of the current lord, took her down. However, it seems she managed to escape and became the leader of the sacred village. Maybe she never gave up on dominating Pearl City and is just waiting for the perfect moment to attack. Meanwhile, the purging squad built several safe houses outside the city. They are extremely well camouflaged so that no one knows where they are. Safe house number 3, for instance, looks exactly like a rock. As they walk through the area, Sizzy hears a strange noise and wonders if it's the Zhu family again. The problem is there are a lot of injured people, and she'll have to leave Zhang Ping to take care of them. The question is whether he can really handle something like that. At that moment, our boy excitedly shouts that it worked. Seeing the lantern, she asks if that's the one that ran out of energy. He says yes, but he thought it would be a waste to throw it away, so he kept trying to recharge it, whether with fire or pure water. He even tried using blood to charge it, until finally he managed to fill it with nether. It's now a nether lantern that hides his scent and prevents others from checking his information. Our boy points out that it now seems stronger than before. It was a lucky break, but it's good because they're now protected. With the safety of the place secured, they could explore the area, including the storm of beasts heading their way. Our boy observes and says that there might be a bit more than he expected. It looks like the Zhu family is already using their beast control. At that moment, Sizzy alerts everyone at the base, saying more than 10,000 beasts are heading toward Pearl City. Zhang Ping, however, comments that the beasts seem to be running away from something rather than chasing something. That's when he gasps in shock. He points in a direction and tells Sizzy to take a look. She's not thrilled with what she sees either. She warns over the radio that a massive horde of zombies is heading toward the city, and the number is at least 50,000. At that moment, Shibai slams his hand down and wonders how this is possible. How are they supposed to deal with 50,000 zombies, 10,000 beasts, the foxes, and the Zhu family all in the same city? Obviously, they don't have enough people to handle all of this. He wonders if he'll have to intervene directly, but then he has an idea. He calls for the 3 girls and tells them to prepare to activate the celestial curtain once again. They seem hesitant, but he explains that yesterday, he suppressed the power of the fox leader, so she's not at full strength yet. They're going to have to rely on the help of everyone in the city and send out a warning about the incoming zombies. Once all the awakened individuals are ready, they'll infiltrate the crowd. This way, they can blend in and avoid being attacked by the foxes. He then orders Sizzy and Zhang Ping to buy the city as much time as possible to prepare. At safe house number 5, the man says those are the captain's orders. Everyone was supposed to head to base number 3 and help them survive. The men are excited, saying it's time for them to shine a little. Meanwhile, the guy from the Zhu family is furious because the plan to take down the forge failed. He sends a message saying that Lu Xiu is not in the Lord's mansion. At that moment, the person on the other end says they've encountered some problems. A giant horde of zombies has appeared outside the city and they don't know who's behind it. He tells them to stop the small talk and come up with a plan or everything will fall apart. He needs to find that saint as soon as possible before they lose their chance. At that moment, he looks back. The city's main squad is passing by and he recognizes the captain as Link Dai. The chubby guy already said that the city's lord wasn't there and asks what the captain is doing there. But the man is completely ignored and the captain heads for the door. At that moment, he begins to open it. The chubby guy is confused by what is happening. There's a serenade going on and everyone is dancing romantically. Jumping tells them to join in and have fun with everyone. Link D takes a sip of the drink. He regains consciousness and wonders how he ended up there. That's when he remembers the plan was to capture someone named Zhang Ping. Jumping says he must be a bit lost, and the man wonders if she's the one who made him appear there. As soon as she gets close, he feels like she's some kind of king of his species. She tells him not to waste anything, and immediately, he kneels, saying he understands the saint. Confused, she asks why he's calling her that since she considers everyone their friend. She tells him to join in and take part in the dance. The chubby guy knows that the saint's power only affects mutated creatures, so maybe this man has been taken by the fox. Considering how all the guards are there, there's not a single real person left in that mansion. The good thing is that Junting is controlling everything, and even she hasn't realized it. If he could convince her to be part of the plan, they could move on to the next phase. He approaches her and asks how things are going. She explains that she met many new friends and didn't expect such a big party just for her. She asks about her sister, Lu Xiu, and he says she'll be back soon as she went to take care of some things. He then tells her he knows of a much more fun place and asks if she wants to go there. Man, for someone trying to win her over as a friend, you're not playing the game right. Obviously, she hugs him and says no. First, she hasn't finished playing here, and second, she doesn't understand how he knows her name since she never told him. Suddenly, everyone at the party stops and starts staring at him. Back at Safe House 003, Sizzy is walking around with her little powers. Our boy is also creating ice and distractions to slow the beasts down. They raise some giant ice boulders with a few beasts trapped inside. The problem is, they're easily breaking everything. He warns that he's going to try to buy a little more time. He creates a full nether creature that costs 100 points. That's because the absurd number of beasts is feeding the fear he's able to generate. He's constantly gaining more fear and spending it to summon more monsters. The goal is to hold off as much as possible until reinforcements arrive. Now the attack distribution is with the zombies in the back and the beasts in the front. Our boy is all stylish, summoning this massive purple dragon. It's easily tearing through several beasts and racking up a ton of SP. Our boy is excited. Even though it's a disaster, he's definitely leveling up a lot. The beasts, not being stupid, start changing course to avoid the dragon. But for him, this was perfect since they weren't even fighting, and he was earning experience just by killing the fleeing beasts. Meanwhile, some ice shards are piercing other creatures. Stizzy is taking down the creatures, destroying the front line with headbutts. Our boy only compliments her. As he wonders how many creatures he's already killed, it seems like it's never ending. And the problem is that eventually there were so many that he didn't even have time to hit them all, until a fireball and a lightning bolt came. Man, I thought it hit someone else, but it got him right in the forehead. He turned around thinking someone had arrived. But in fact, the zombies were awakened. It seems like the usual stereotypes didn't work in this filthy world. With his analysis, he saw they were level 6 ancestral zombies from the village. Now the problem had become much bigger since these creatures were much smarter and even had powers. He needed to warn everyone at the base as quickly as possible. He starts flapping his wings and kicking everything away. Stizzy creates a water circle around him and warns him to be careful not to let those creatures get too close. Our boy grabs the creatures with a water hand. He says he has an idea and flies into the sky. He starts raining fire on all the zombies he had captured. Then he makes it rain fireballs of burning zombies. The boy is racking up a ton of experience and had already gained 2 more points in all his stats. Meanwhile, Stizzy was easily cutting off heads. She activated a blade technique and slashed through a bunch more, until one tried to stab her right in the forehead. But our boy arrived and smashed them all with a single stomp. With that, they wiped out the first wave of 1,000 creatures, so only 49,000 left. He wonders how these damn zombies knew how to use abilities. She explains that they were probably awakened in their previous lives. She's sure it's the filthy zoo family. But he explains that he analyzed the zombies and found out they're actually ancestors of the sacred village. Shibai hears this and says that from what he knows about the zoo family, they wouldn't go as far as controlling zombies. The current information suggests that this incident has much more to do with the sacred village. Stizzy says it seems to be the work of that Dan woman, the one who gave her the scar on her face. It looks like they're dealing with another dangerous villain. She tells our boy to hold his breath because that gas is toxic. However, the strange smell reminds him of something. It smells like rotten eggs, meaning it's hydrogen sulfide. When he was part of the rescue team, he had to conduct an operation like this, and that's when he learned it's extremely flammable. He warns her to be careful because it could explode. She asks what he's planning to do. Our boy says there's no time to explain and she'll have to trust him. With that, she ignites her finger with a bit more flame. And of course, there's a massive explosion. But our boy wasn't a fool. While she protected herself, he was absorbing the fire. His reserves were now at 263. Another wave of zombies was arriving and he used his analysis ability. It was an old man sitting on top of a muscular figure. But strangely, the analysis wasn't working. The old man scratched his beard and said it was impressive they neutralized his poison. Unfortunately, it was a high-level creature too far away for the analysis to work. He comes up with a plan, decides to analyze all the other creatures instead. With that, he manages to perform almost 17,000 analyses. Because of this, his analysis ability levels up to advanced, and now he can analyze targets above level 30. That creature was called Zhuge Shangming, an awakened being at level 39 who had reached the apex rank. The old man then tells the creatures to kill the 2 of them because he has other matters to attend to. Our boy mentions that the creature is level 39 and asks what a fallen means. She explains that an awakened being's abilities evolve as they use them, slowly assimilating with their power. However, if they aren't strong enough, they are consumed by their own power. That's when they become known as fallen. The problem is that, despite losing their reason, they are considered extremely powerful. Our boy is calmly slicing through zombies. Suddenly, a green ogre appears next to Stizzy. It attacks her, and she has to defend herself. She's thrown back and immediately sends a message to the base, warning that a group of extremely strong zombies has appeared, and they no longer have the strength to stop them. Additionally, an apex-level creature is leading the entire legion toward the city. Given that it's level 39, it's a threat far beyond their reach. What's left for the 2 of them to deal with is the level 39 green orc. Zhangping then decides to test a new nether technique. He surrounds the creature with a bunch of purple chains, but easily breaks free. At that moment, a deafening sound comes from within the city. Our boy, startled, wonders if the enemies have already reached the city. Meanwhile, at the northern gate, the horde of beasts and zombies is approaching. Several awakened beings have volunteered to help defend the gate. Even the master who taught our boy his first techniques said he wasn't going to let the city fall like this. With just a few men there, no one was getting through. Or at least there were more than a few men, but they were only academy apprentices. At least they were enough to stop the first wave of rabbits. However, obviously, this wasn't the biggest problem. And the captain himself was already locked in battle with one of the zombies with abilities. Man, he stopped the punch, but it seemed to start corroding his hand. And with that, the poor guy was being overwhelmed. He notices that the creature is using the same beast fist technique he teaches. This makes him wonder who the hell this monster is in front of him. He dodges another attack, preparing to land a blow on its stomach. but instead he goes for the classic Rock Lee move, hitting it in the shoulder. He throws it up into the air, headbutts it, then slams it down to the ground, causing an explosion. Look at him recovering HP out of pure rage. If you say the guy doesn't have swagger, you're lying. He sees that something seems to have fallen from the zombie and wonders why it looks familiar. Then he realizes it's the token of one of the older men from the academy. This person had that man's token and also knew how to use the techniques. Perhaps it really was Brother Benchy, who disappeared 30 years ago. He never imagined that someone like him would suffer such a cruel fate as becoming a zombie. Benchy keeps attacking, saying only he will be able to stop him. The elder wonders if the man he knew is truly gone. He remembers when they used to practice together. Since Benchy was a bit older, he always ended up getting hit. However, he was always a good person and taught him much of what he knew about beast techniques. And he was always eager to continue training. At that moment, the zombie says he's going to wipe the smile off the elder's face. But crying, the leader asks, "Since when have your punches become so predictable and weak?" He throws him away, saying it's a disgrace to the Beast King Academy. He didn't know who did this to his former comrade, but he swore he was going to find that person and make them pay the price. He then warns everyone to get out of the way, or they'll be caught in the crossfire. In the same moment, he jumps and comes face to face with Benchy. Man, the poor guy didn't even have a chance. He got hit right in the chest. The impact generates a shockwave that passes right through him. As he's being evaporated, he thinks to himself that his younger brother really has become stronger. With that, the leader steps back, telling his brother to rest in peace. At that moment, a man with yellow teeth says it's a shame to see a masterpiece being destroyed like that. But it didn't matter because that guy would be the perfect replacement. The leader, furious, asks if he was the one who turned his friend into a zombie. The old man says yes and asks what his objections are. Did insects like him really think they would survive that army? The Zhu family, after failing in their plan to kidnap the saint, is now being hunted by the purging squad. The attack on the forge was a good plan, worked to leave everyone on edge. And now Lu Xiu and Yu are running free through the city. The goal of releasing mutated beasts into the Lord's palace went wrong since a bunch of strange zombies appeared instead. The plan to capture jumping directly from the mansion center also failed. And now he's here, alongside the foxes. With that, the Zhu family's plan had been completely uncovered. They wanted to bring all the foxes under their control by using the saint and then retake control of the city. However, the current investigation shows that these zombies are connected to the sacred village. The celestial curtain has successfully been raised, gathering all the combatants in the area. The attack is mainly coming from the north, as the south is surrounded by mountains. At this moment, the Beast King Martial Academy and other awakened ones are holding the northern position. Meanwhile, inside the ancestral sacred village, a man kneels before the cult leader and informs her that everything is ready. She tells them to go help the zombies cause chaos in the city. And the moment the Zhaoshi brothers capture the saint, they are to return immediately. The boy asks if that king-level beast in the city won't interfere with their plans. Additionally, if they're already declaring war, why would they retreat after the first attack? The warden says that the old fox is likely just waiting for Shibai to reveal himself. The boy asks if that doesn't put their plan at risk. She reassures him, saying he needn't worry. Even though the saint had only just awakened, not even that powerful fox could completely ignore her effect. Besides, the fox isn't their biggest concern in the city. The real problem is Shibai and the purging squad. And that's why she's using the zombies to create chaos in the city. First, they'll use the saint as a pretext for war and launch this invasion. The purging squad will have to activate the Sky and Moon Pearl. But to do that, Shibai will have to reveal himself, and that's when the fox will strike. As soon as they're caught in the middle of this battle, they'll kidnap the princess and kill the rest. The boy says that his information indicates that the Zhu family also wants the saint and asks what they'll do if they interfere. She explains that at the moment, the saint is completely out of control and the Zhu family has no chance of accomplishing anything. That's why she sent the Zhaoshi brothers, who have sacred blood and can communicate directly with her. Moreover, it seems that the great ancestors of the Zhu family don't want to get involved in all of this. Even if they tried to take the saint by force, they wouldn't be able to defeat the brothers. She then says it's time for them to head out as well. Meanwhile, our boy has his dagger ready. He and Sizzy are killing as many zombies as possible. The problem is there are so many that he's been fighting for a long time and doesn't seem to end. Suddenly, he feels something pass by him. He turns and tells Sizzy to be careful. As she looks, a creature slams an axe into the ground, knocking her down. She tried to form an ice shield, but she was thrown far away. The beast was already leaping on her, and our boy rushed to help. The problem is that he was running low on nether, and zombies were holding him back. He shouts for Sizzy to watch out for the attack, but the brute smashes straight into the shield. The chubby guy says that piece of metal is not just for show, and Sizzy recognizes him as Zhang Shuzhan. At that moment, some flying swords come out of nowhere and start eliminating several zombies. It seems reinforcements have finally arrived. The incredibly dangerous woman lands a powerful kick. This is none other than Cheng Shuji. The flying swords continue to land in front of the massive orc, forcing it to retreat. Qinmei arrives and asks Sizzy if her swordsmanship is getting rusty. He delivers another series of strikes to the orc and tells her not to let her guard down. No physical attacks seem to work on that creature. Our boy, feeling confident, says he knows how to beat it. He asks the senior to keep it occupied. Man, the guy is pretty nice. He listens to the boy and charges forward. With a reverse strike, he's holding back the giant axe. Zhang Ping noticed that this guy is controlling the creatures with toxins. He knows toxins are flammable and tells the brute to eat this attack. He slams a hammer with scales right into the beast. Now that it was embedded, the fun part began. He slashes the creature's back with flames. With that, all the toxins inside the creature begin to combust. The orc falls to the ground, bloated. Zuji says these guys were really tough. However, our boy warns that the real tough ones are near Pearl City. He explains that there are some injured people at base 003, and they're being kept hidden thanks to an item. Shinming says they received the situation report from the boss and that they'll take care of those people. He tells him to head back to the city because his power will be more useful there. But what if he just stands there saying nothing? Ming tells her to go with him as there are enough people here already. With that, she runs ahead, telling the boys to follow. At the northern gate, it's absolute chaos. He's right in the middle of this war. The Beast Academy Master is there, all fired up and buffed, killing everything. Instructor Baidi is in his transformed form, helping on the front line, when suddenly, Tiago turns around. It's a fireball, and it's not letting this guy leave alive. However, the Martial King delivered a punch, changing its path. He turned to the level 39 zombie and asked if that was all he had. The old man wonders why he's been encountering so many fire-type creatures lately. The other one is about to throw a punch at him, but he just says it looks like he's being underestimated. Man, and oh no, he took one right to the gut. He still says it's not over yet. The old man coughs up blood and an explosion occurs as his hand pierces the poor guy. And man, it rained the boy. This guy was tougher than I imagined. What the hell? Did he kill the big chief? The problem is, he noticed something unexpected. Even with the leader dead, the zombies were still moving. And obviously, it wasn't going to be that easy. At that moment, the man lands a usurpation strike on the zombie's belly. The technique this old man possesses allows him to sacrifice zombies to revive himself. At that moment, the poor guy's heart starts beating erratically. Already bleeding dark energy, he asks what the old man did. The old man says the effect seems to have taken hold quickly. He injected a little zombie toxin, and when it spreads, he'll become one too. Obviously, the poor guy wasn't happy about that. He activated an emperor body technique that raised his body temperature to over 1,000 degrees. The old man says it looks like he's trying to burn the toxin out with his own heat. However, that was impossible. There are many types of toxins, and his wasn't one that could be removed that way. At that moment, the Great Master's friends call out to him, and he turns around, telling them not to worry. With that, a bunch of zombies surrounds him and asks how long he can last. The poor guy is getting beaten, but says they'll pay the price no matter what. The old man says it seems he doesn't understand the situation, and since he's missing his friend, he'll give him the chance to join him. The Great Master starts realizing that he has to end this now. He throws a punch right at the red zombie. Man, the guy doesn't stop. He sends the zombie flying. The problem is his power is starting to run out. The poison was spreading too fast, and what he had at that moment wasn't enough. His body didn't even have the energy to maintain his final form. At this rate, he turned into a zombie, and the entire northern gate would fall. That's when two shadows approach the battle. Sissy tells our boy that she received information that the Great Master is in bad shape. They rush past the zombies with her saying they need to rescue him first. The poor guy is nearly unconscious, wondering who's coming. From a distance, she shouts for him to hold on a little longer. She unleashes some attacks, knocking the zombies off him. At that moment, he saw an opening. And man, he throws a hurricane punch, sending everything flying. He tells our boy to run away because he's going to turn into a zombie. But John Ping tells him not to worry because he'll heal him. He activates his pure blood body. The master is shocked and says that method is quite unusual. Not only did it heal his wounds, but it also restored some of his energy. Zhang Ping explains that he couldn't neutralize the poison, but he managed to suppress it so it wouldn't spread any further. The Great Master says that's good enough. He just asked the kid to buy him a little more time. Fang Leishan, the true master of the Beast Martial Academy, was an apex-level awakened being at level 38. The old man tells him to give up and become one of the zombies. However, he only raises his body temperature even higher. It's already at 3,000 degrees. Man, he explodes from his position. And in the next second, he's right in the old man's face. He delivers a powerful punch straight to his arm. Zhang Ping warns that his analysis shows this guy's body is connected to the other zombies, so the only way to defeat him is to kill them all. The old man grabs his arm and says he's not going to die that easily. At that moment, another legion of zombies surrounds him again. The temperature rises to 4,000 degrees and the old man starts melting in his hand. With that, he starts firing flames at all the surrounding zombies. However, that still wasn't enough. He asks Zhang Ping if he knows any way to increase his body temperature even more. Our boy says that the fire he knows how to spin is unfortunately pretty weak. Man, now I understand, our boy has turned into blood and is inside the Great Master's body. Zhang Ping hands over some scarlet scales and tells him to try using them. The master immediately consumes everything. Meanwhile, another legion of zombies starts advancing toward him. At the same time, a pillar of fire rises to the sky, freezing everything around it. People were saying they never thought they'd see the Great Master in that form again. That was a sign that battle was about to end. The Flame Emperor had returned in his sunfire form, reaching temperatures of 6,000 degrees. With that, not even the most resistant toxin could survive inside his body. He warns Zhang Ping that the form he's taken will cause severe damage to his own body, so he'll need help. He tells the rest of the group to move back to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. Everyone obeys immediately, running back toward the city. The zombie, reconstituting itself, realizes that the toxin it had planted is gone. It immediately calls for all units to gather forces and finish him off. But the master activates a supreme beast technique and lets out a breath. The entire legion was charging at him, and he just turned his head, breathing fire on everyone. With a single breath, over 20,000 zombies return to ashes. Sissy quickly realizes that, of all the people she knows, this guy is one of the 3 strongest. Just then, someone reports that the masters of 2 other academies have betrayed everyone and let creatures through the gate. Leisha knows who those masters are and can't believe they've really betrayed the people. At that moment, some zombies begin to emerge from the ground. The chief says that if the city has already been invaded, his objective is complete, and this time the victory is his. Leixian, realizing he'll have to clean up the city, can only say that next time he will kill that man. He tells everyone to return and help the city while he handles whatever comes from the north. He tells our boy that he has managed to clear the toxin, so he can return as well. In the city, chaos reigns as people flee from the beasts. Meanwhile, a man from the Zhu family is delighted to see everyone screaming. This is how the city should look without his family. He then asks how the plan is going. They say that at least 1,000 of the beasts that invaded are under their control. The man says that's perfect and orders them to attack the Lord's mansion. They respond that it doesn't make sense since Junting is there and her divine blood would interfere with their control. Considering even the foxes are her servants, how could they kill this girl? The chief explains that at the moment, Junting's mind is like that of a newborn. She's unconsciously controlling the creatures around her. However, if too many of them approach, her ability will lose control. At that point, the mansion will fall into chaos, and they'll be able to capture her. Meanwhile, Xia is licking Junting's face, and Junting tells her to stop. Slowly, she starts to open her eyes. She sees a bunch of monsters standing in front of her and wonders where everyone went, and why they all suddenly turned white. She turns to Xiu and says she's weird too, asking who she is. But it doesn't matter because everyone is so cute. The chief is just observing, thinking this girl is out of her mind. It also seems her powers aren't stabilized yet. She walks over and wonders why there are so many white things outside. A bunch of bubbles is floating before her eyes, and it's too much. She wants it all to stop because it's giving her a headache. She collapses, unable to understand what's happening. Meanwhile, in the city, a girl is running from a beast and is about to be eaten. But our boy steps in and grabs it with his hands, saving her just in time. He holds its mouth shut and breathes fire into the creature. With that, it collapses, scorched, and the girl's mother thanks him for saving her daughter. Zhang Ping says that the areas ahead have more citizens, so they can't let the beasts get past them. She informs the purging squad to create a defensive perimeter and for the rest to continue rescuing civilians outside of that area. The biggest problem is that it will be difficult to kill these creatures without destroying the entire city. Our boy says they just need to buy enough time for everyone to evacuate. Suddenly, the beasts seem to be surrounded by a red aura. Stizzy also receives a message that the beasts near her have stopped moving. Our boy wonders what's happening. At that moment, Junting is rising and even the mayor wants to know what's going on. If it's what he thinks it is, everyone's in trouble. Suddenly, she starts to open her eyes. A pink aura begins to radiate from her. The energy spreads throughout the castle. The Zhu family instantly loses control of all the beasts they had under their command. It seems the cursed saint has awakened her goddess blood. She starts flying, saying she sees a lot of white balls in that direction. Immediately, the old man runs, saying they need to capture her. However, he senses something strange. An unusual feeling that only a king-level creature could emit. Maybe Lu Xiu had regained 100% of her powers. He wonders if Junting has something to do with the fox awakening. His men ask why the chief is standing still. He tells them to contact everyone and capture Junting as he has more important things to take care of. Given that the foxes now have someone at the king level, revealing himself would be suicide. For now, it's better for him to stay back and observe. Meanwhile, the martial fighters are organizing groups to continue clearing the city. Baibi asks the Great Master how he's doing, and he says he managed to recover after that fight. He then punches the wall, saying that those damn traitors abandoned the city. The Great Master tells him to calm down and remember that they need to rescue everyone from the city. Considering the chaos going on, their focus should be on saving as many lives as possible. At that moment, 2 people on the left point out that a group of awakened ones is approaching from the north. As they arrive, they say that no one will enter the city. They are immediately recognized as members of the Burning Sun Martial School, and the bald man in the middle is one of the traitors who opened the gate. The Great Master asks how the hell Wu Ruyu had the nerve to show his face there. He tells everyone from the Beast Martial Academy to prepare because these guys are traitors. He then asks why Wu Ruyu did this. Wu Ruyu questions Master Feng, asking if he never wanted to live a different life. The Great Master is confused by this talk of a different life. Wu Ruyu tells him to take a look at Pearl City, a place that seems promising but is destroyed every year by mutated beasts. He says they're trapped in this small patch of land, and he always wondered what it would take for humanity to finally give rise to a king. What would such a world look like? If a human king appeared in the sacred village, not only would Pearl City be safe, but the entire world would finally be free of the beast threat. The Great Master says it looks like Wu Ruyu is the one spreading this idea of supremacy under a single human king. Wu Ruyu says, of course, and that even the Great Master could become a student. However, Lakeshin asks if being a student means sacrificing an entire city. Wu Ruyu says they're actually here to find the key to creating that king. If they just stay put, nothing will happen. However, Lakeshin asks what he'll do if he doesn't obey. In that moment, Wu Ruyu lunges forward, saying that in that case, they'll have to settle this with their fists. Meanwhile, in the northern part of the city, Jumting is flying. Our boy is seeing all the creatures that seem to be worshipping her. It appears the mutated beasts have stopped because of her. She's flying, saying that this bunch of white energy is so cute. However, Chu Jumting has so many stars and worse yet has become a fallen human. Sizzy asks if that's true. Before he can respond, she pulls him down, saying someone had arrived. It was members of the Zhu family who were trying to kidnap the girl, but were terrified. After all, she had stolen all the beasts that were under their control, and they have lost communication with the rest of their group. It was impossible for the two of them to complete this mission alone. Suddenly, someone says it's amazing that the Zhu family finally revealed themselves for a second. Apparently, they were braver than the others they encountered last time. The ones who appeared were the Celestial Tribe brothers, level 25 humans with 5-star potential. Our boy immediately relays their characteristics to Sizzy, who says this is the perfect chance to extract some information. The brothers talk about turning the Zhu family members into zombies. The Zhu family members realize they're behind everything that's happening in the city and tell them to resolve it quickly. With that, the idiots charge forward. However, they haven't even started fighting yet, and they're already being poisoned. The brothers stand still, calling them pathetic and saying they thought they'd be stronger. The Zhu family members' bodies were paralyzed. One of the brothers points his finger and tells them to stop resisting and accept defeat. Only now does the idiot from the Zhu family realize there's poisonous gas around them. One of them manages to raise a barrier, but the other gets bitten by a tiger. Meanwhile, a snake coils around one of them, and the brother says it's a shame they won't last long. It would be better if they stopped resisting and accepted becoming zombies. However, the kid lets out a scream with his Zhu aura, telling them to dream on. The other fool tells his brother to be careful. The boy lit up like a star. The snake and tiger were evaporated. The brothers thank him, saying they were lucky not to have been hit by that attack. At that moment, Jumting appears behind them, wondering what happened to those two white creatures. Wow, but it looks like she's already siding with the brothers because she starts healing their beasts and them. They bow to the Sing and say they are here to take her back. She says there's something impure in their bodies and she will purify it. In that moment, strangely, their powers stop working and they wonder how that's possible. What she was doing was extracting the sacred blood from everyone. The problem is, this would turn against them. Both creatures begin to be purified. And in the next moment, Jumting says now they're all clean. She hugs the tiger, asking if he likes it here and saying they can go watch the other animals. She walks off with the creatures and the brothers realize she's already mastered the goddess's blood. The problem now is that it's going to be much more difficult to take her back to the village since she's lost her mind. One brother says that for now they need to focus on returning to the city and the leader will come up with a new plan. Upon hearing this, Sizzy gets angry, realizing that the leader is already there. Zhangping gets worried and asks who this leader is. Sizzy explains that her name is Lai Akshu, the most dangerous criminal wanted by the Purging Squad. She was the one who killed the master and also left the scar on Sizzy's face. Additionally, she's strong enough to face Shabai head-on, so they need to find out if this monster is really in the city. Even though they can't deal with Jumting, at least she's out of the city for now. And now that she's taken those beasts, this is the perfect chance to capture these guys. They were escaping when a barrage of ice struck them from behind. One of the brothers pushes his sibling aside, saying that more people were hiding nearby. He was about to make a move, but Sizzy had already landed a helium strike on his arm. The man calls out to his brother, unaware that Zhangping is already behind him. And just like that, another fool is captured. Our boy says that if that poisonous mist is activated, both of them will suffer a lot. Sizzy immediately demands that they reveal their purpose in the city and if Lai Aksu is really here. One of the brothers refuses to say anything, so he takes a slash to the chest. Our boy says that they'll keep cutting him while he helps him recover, and it'll take some time, but eventually, they'll spill their secrets. With that, the men begin screaming. Sometime later, Sizzy informs the captain that they have vital information. According to what they discovered from the ones they captured, the ancestors of the sacred village are trying to use Xianing, who has awakened the goddess of blood. Additionally, Li Aksu is in Pearl City at this moment. Shabai says it seems the worst has happened, and he will have to deal with it. He turns to Manny, telling her to prepare the teleportation circle. She asks if they are really going to activate the purple of the sun and moon. He knows that it's hidden in the center of the city, and once activated, he will be exposed. Plus, the foxes aren't dead. If he reveals himself now, it will be too dangerous. He explains that the original plan was to lure out the Fox King and keep it distracted in a fight while he activated the pearl. But with the arrival of Lai Akshu, nothing is certain anymore. He will have to take the risk and activate the sun and moon before they can react. There's no time to wait because it's the only chance to save Pearl City. A teleportation portal appears in the city's memorial center, and Shibai and the rest of the team emerge from it. He informs everyone of the situation in Pearl City and what they need to do. He says he can handle the beasts and the zoo family, but the problem is how to overcome the unstoppable will of humans. Lee Oxru is already there and asks if he's really going to risk everything to activate this item. Manny asks how that woman is already here and why she didn't sense her before the teleportation. Shibai tells her to get used to plans not going well against enemies like these. Lee Oxru tells them to give up because the moment they stepped into this place in desperation, her victory was sealed. However, Shibai tells her to give up her pursuit of the human king's path. She's trying to interfere with the natural order of things, and by doing so, she'll only attract more king-level beasts. She needs to think about what will happen if she fails in her attempt to reach the king level. Lee Oxru simply responds that she won't fail. But Shibai counters by saying she already failed the moment she raised her blade against the innocent. There's no way someone who uses the ends to justify the means is on the right path. She doesn't walk the king's path, but the path of lies. Lee Oxru replies that a pile of bones is necessary beneath her if she is to become a queen. Whether it's the path of kings or lies, people will only remember the victors. Shibai says that her plan makes no sense. While trying to free humanity, she's killing everyone. Lee Oxru says she's tired of talking and knew she wouldn't be able to convince him, which is why she brought friends. The truth is, Lee Oxru doesn't want him to activate the sun and moon because it will attract the foxes, and she doesn't yet have Jumping to control them. Shibai then sees that Yu Chenghai is by her side and asks how the lord of the city could be involved in something like this. Chenghai says that Lee Oxru is right, the foxes are too strong and they need a human king to survive. However, Shibai says that she's not a leader and in the end she won't win this. The lord ignores him and says maybe not, but some things need to be done, whether the result is good or bad. He was too conservative and he knew he couldn't be persuaded, so he says that he'll have to ask Shibai to die. In a residential area, an explosion occurs in a park in the south. Junting asks the animals why they seem so scared. Sissy senses the fluctuation of energy. They see that Junting and all the beasts she was controlling are being drawn to the city. They imagine that the captain must have started the fight. She notifies someone from the team to come and pick up the two brothers while they run off to help with the battle. In the middle of the city, everything's a mess. Meanwhile, Lee Oxru dodges Shibai's attacks and asks if that's all he's got. He says buying time against her is more than enough. Suddenly, a crystal encases her body. While he begins the activation of the sun and moon, she realizes that his plan was to activate it while she was trapped. She shouts for Yu Chenghai to destroy it quickly, but the three girls from the purging squad block his path, saying they won't allow it. He raises his staff, saying that in that case, the three of them will die trying. He slams it into the ground, sending stones flying everywhere. The girls start arriving just in time. Sizzy raises a barrier to protect Shibai as Zhang Ping approaches. That's when she notices that Lee Oxru, the villain herself, is hovering just above them. And worst of all, the Saint Junting is indeed approaching with a pack of beasts. Lee Oxru sees that the girl is out of control, meaning the ill brothers have failed. The problem is that Junting's energy is currently in an extremely unstable state. It seems the goddess of blood has fully awakened, and she is in the stage of metamorphosis. Junting floats above, merely observing. She notices that whatever it is that's frightening the creatures, it also gives her a strange sense of familiarity. As soon as she reaches out her hand, the sphere begins to glow. It ascends to the sky, accumulating energy and even shatters Lee Oxru's barrier. Lee Oxru doesn't understand why so much energy is being drawn from the sphere. Shibai warns that Junting is absorbing all the energy from the sun and moon. With that, Junting rises into the sky, an item that beasts can resist her pull. Our boy Zhang Ping starts feeling a headache and Sizzy collapses to the ground, unable to do anything. Junting says she feels like her mother is calling out to her. She knows someone is waiting for her outside the city. Lee Oxru is excited. The energy from the Pearl of the Sun has completed Junting's metamorphosis. She then flies off, calling the creatures to come witness it. Junting knows she is responding to the call from the ancestral village. Her willingly going to the village is perfect for their plan. Lee Oxru had been hiding this girl in the city for a decade, all to wait for the right day to awaken her powers. She informs Chenghai that this girl is the key to creating a human king. The foxes must have awakened now that Junting is gone, and they have surely noticed the commotion in the middle of the city. This chaos is enough to keep Shibai distracted, and so far, her plan is working. She turns to Shibai, thanking him for accelerating her plan so much. She thought it would be much harder to complete the Saint's metamorphosis, but he did it for her. While she talks about how this is truly destiny, Sizzy approaches from behind, saying she won't let her escape. Sizzy jumps and attacks with energy, declaring she will avenge her master. But Lee Oxru just asks if she's being serious. She stretches her arm and says the girl is getting ahead of herself. She creates an impact that sends poor Sizzy flying. Our boy Zhang Ping quickly jumps in, creating a pair of nether wings to catch her midair. He grabs her gently in his arms, saving the damsel in distress like a true hero. With that, Lee Oxru bids Shibai farewell, saying until next time. The group asks if they should follow her, but Shibe says it won't be possible for now because they need to focus on recovering the city. Our boy tells Suzy that she only suffered a few small cuts. She's feeling down, saying she's still too weak. Suddenly, they hear a loud crack, and Manny wonders where it's coming from. Shibai says it's undoubtedly the celestial Fox King, so they need to prepare for teleportation. They spot the castle guards, and they know that in reality, they are all foxes. The guards tell them to stand still and respect the law. But obviously it won't listen, and Manny begins setting up the teleportation. Our boy warns them to be cautious because Fox's attacks are usually invisible, but Shibai says he'll hold them off. He starts flying and activates a cerebral resonance wave. He immediately orders the purging squad members to evacuate the city, but the girls are hesitant. Of course, he's the captain, and he tells them it's an order. Our boy Zhang Ping doesn't understand why the foxes aren't following Junting. Stizzy explains that they must have some kind of protective barrier and says it's best they leave quickly. Shibai is relieved to see that everyone is escaping. No one stood a chance against the Fox Queen, so it was best for everyone to flee the city. Once everyone has left, Shibai wonders why the Fox Queen hasn't shown herself yet. He wanted to see the power that the Fox Queen possessed. A voice emerges saying, so this is the most powerful of humans. But it's good for him to know that with his current strength, he has no chance of winning. Shibai tries to activate his analysis. He sees that she has the abilities of cognitive distortion and inversion of principles. She attacks, and he says there's only one way to find out if he's strong enough. He'll hit her with his most powerful strike. He activates the vacuum collapse, which starts creating multiple holes in the ruins. Shibai realizes that the Fox Queen is being attacked, and the vacuum collapse starts opening holes in her body. He plans to keep heating her body until he creates a vacuum, making her explode from the inside out. The creature says it's a strong attack, but useless against her. He wonders if it's an illusion or cognitive distortion. What's strange is that he had blocked his senses before the fight started. Moreover, it's not a clone like his that disappears when killed. The fox tells him to stop thinking he can fool her with these ridiculous tricks. The moment he's trapped, he realizes that this inversion of principles ability seems to affect the very laws of reality. The laws of temperature, gravity, or physics don't apply to the creature's body. And man, our boy is already down for the count with the fox staring him down. Shibai says it's a shame her powers only affect her own body. That doesn't work on him, and he starts destroying her hand. He raises a barrier, and she notices it's a temporal prison, and he says, here's a little gift for you. Like in this videos that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.